I have no idea what it is. Oh wait, you guys don't see it. What the fuck?
Nice, man!
Sure, but the question is, does the international addiction to an internet game represent a danger? Maybe, but there is also no indication that anything can slow the explosive growth of the intoxicating game called World of Warcraft.
Holy shit, what is this? Wait, wasn't MadSeason? Didn't he stop making WoW content? Hang on. He was like, fuck it, before I'm fully quitting, I'm gonna flame them one last time. He said he has the last one to make. Oh shit. This is a worth watching one, boys. I don't know if I'm gonna watch the full 2 hours, but...
Shut the fucking DKP minor! What the fuck was that shit?
And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't.
You guys take care of us, man. Yeah, you guys really take care of us.
Oh, I get confused all day, every day.
I mean, regardless if you're right or wrong, by the way, with it, you think you do, but you don't, that's a ridiculous thing to say. The audacity having that, to say that in front of the people and in front of fans that, you know, I definitely think Classic was a massive, massive success. And it's not just that I think it is that. It's the truth. Let's assume that he is completely right. Like, you're telling me, Scripe, you should just play League of Legends. I know I don't get many views on League of Legends. I wouldn't tell you, you think you do, but you don't want me to do that. Like, what? Like, that's ridiculous. I mean, maybe I might, because I'm a streamer. I don't give a fuck, right? Like, I can tell you guys, like, fuck off, guys. Like, I don't care about you. I mean, I do, of course. But, you know, I'm not a huge company's representative in this case, right? Like, you don't say that, like, to your customers, right? Like, these people are your customers. I mean, I guess you're my customers. Wait, I guess he's right. Fuck it. He can say it if he's right, but he was not right. So unlock. He shouldn't say it. That's it.
Incredible 16 hours a day. His mother says his personality has changed and that he's become moody and violent, and his addiction is tearing the family apart.
But our action
Becoming violent after playing WoW. Dude, are you serious? Like, WoW, yeah?
are gonna matter more than any of these. Than any of these.
Wait, what is
Are gonna matter.
Apart.
But our actions are gonna matter more than any of these. Than any of these.
I don't get it. I don't know.
Alright, thumbs up. Ready, guys? Let's do this.
Well, actions are gonna matter more than what did he say?
Oh my god, he just ran in.
Sorry.
The power level where I basically get all the good loot and they get all the great experience.
What was that? I don't even know. Also, the old login screen from WoW looked pretty sick, dude.
In the
Unlike
world
the
of
simple stuff.
MMORPGs, you'll scarcely find anyone who hasn't heard of, if not played, the World of Warcraft. Released in 2004, it would quickly begin to make a name for itself, garnering worldwide praise for its innovation, accessibility, and the closeness to the community by its developer, Blizzard Entertainment. Both celebrated and condemned for its addictiveness, in the span of a few short months, it would not only become the most popular of the MMORPG genre, but also set the standard for all of those that would follow in its footsteps. Many would try, and over the course of 15 years, he would gain even a fraction of the player base of the seemingly unstoppable giant.
Oh, that's mental, yeah. This is mental.
Today, though, a much different picture is painted. What was initially considered inspirational in the world of game development now leaves behind a controversial history marred with what many describe as betrayal, deception, and squandered potential, leaving many asking the question, how? A snapshot of history of a world created within a world. a microcosm of mayhem, a virtual playground for humanity to show each other their best and their worst. This is the story of Blizzard Entertainment and their iconic MMORPG, the World of Warcraft.
I watched another video similar to this, but about Blizzard only, and like I only watched like the first 5 minutes video, 5 minutes or something. And what really got me is back in the days when Blizzard made a game, when it said Blizzard, you knew that game is gonna be insane. You knew it's gonna be like, it's just gonna be a really fucking good game, no matter what they do. But nowadays, dude, it's the complete opposite. It's crazy. Now it's Riot Games, true. Now it's Riot Games. I wonder if that will change. I feel like Riot Games will always be good though, because I think they figured out a way to make money while also making the game good. They're feeding off of the game being good, not off of like exploiting people and like making the game bad as a trade-off.
At the dawn of the new millennium, the online world was growing rapidly. The intellect of man and the advancements of technology combined had bestowed upon the world the creation of the internet by Al Gore. News of a new Star Wars movie was spreading, the storyboard for The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring had been completed, nerd culture was about to reach critical mass, and Bill Clinton did not have sexual relations with that woman. The MMO was on the rise, and the time to strike was nigh, and in the background, a beast was stirring, silently observing the strengths, the weaknesses, the successes, and the failures of the then relatively unexplored genre. Blizzard, at this point, already had established themselves as innovators with their Diablo, StarCraft, and Warcraft series, the latter being a real-time strategy game set in a fantasy world of orcs, elves, magic, and adventure. And having seen the success of other fantasy-based games such as EverQuest, the table was set. After halting development on an abandoned project, a small team of developers were left in limbo and were searching for inspiration on their next game. They had the IP, they had the funding, and most importantly, the timing. September 2nd, 2001. Long before Blizzard was big enough to hold their own convention, they held a panel at London's European Computer Trade Show, and it was then that the public for the first time saw the World of Warcraft.
The initial versions, to be fair, looked really bad, yeah.
They made it clear. This was not the sequel to the popular RTS series at the time, but rather something completely different. The game would be multiplayer on a massive scale.
I'm surprised Age of Empires didn't do something bigger. Maybe they did,
but
I don't
of
know
MMOs as a whole. The reaction, however, was
they were
mixed.
blasting too.
Some waited with eager anticipation, trying to imagine their beloved series making its leap into the massively multiplayer setting, and many were upset at the abrupt change of focus, preferring Blizzard to concentrate on what was proven to work, instead of taking a gamble into unfettered territory. The idea of paying a monthly fee to continue playing was a hard pill to swallow at the time, especially by Blizzard fans who had grown accustomed to the one-time purchase models set standard by the company. Work would continue on the project, however, and the very first interview would be claimed by the Computer Gaming World magazine. By this time, EverQuest was the clear reigning champion, but the genre as a whole had one fatal flaw, and that's the learning curve. XP loss, gear loss, and even permanent character death were commonplace in nearly every game of the genre, and combined with the large time investment in playing, it cultivated a very niche and hardcore community, and the everyday casual player would quickly succumb to the intense difficulty and seek entertainment from other, more forgiving games. It was a genre with a focus on character progression, with death penalties centering around character regression and a steep learning curve to go along with it. However, this transitionary period would prove to be a key moment where players for the first time would leave single-player games that looked like this into this online sprawling world. They were incomparable to each other, and although it's funny to think now, it was an intimidating thing. The time investment was, and still is, incredibly high. But it was this person, this untapped market of new and casual players that Blizzard would set their sights on. World of Warcraft took a completely different style of approach. During a time when XP loss was the bare minimum penalty for dying, World of Warcraft made you simply run back to your corpse.
One of the great things here is that when you die, and death is an inevitability in all these games, it's really not that big of a deal. All other online RPGs make death a really bad thing because dying should be bad, right? Well, in World of Warcraft, pretty much all that happens is you sit out for a bit. You respawn back at a graveyard and you run and get your corpse and you respawn. You don't lose experience points, you don't lose your items or any of that stuff.
When hitting the max level took years in other games, World of Warcraft it took months for most players. And when systems were complicated and confusing, requiring external literature to understand, World of Warcraft systems were relatively straightforward, and when character stat and template choices were often permanent, World of Warcraft featured costly but reversible methods of character progression and customization. In other games, you had areas.
Is there anyone in the chat that started WoW not long time ago? Like, new started WoW? And, like, how hard do you think is the learning curve that is, like, presented to you? Like, do you think it's hard to learn? Is it overwhelming, or is it kind of easy? Like, I feel like, because back in the days, he's right. Yeah, it was easier to learn, hard to master. But nowadays, when I'm thinking about it, it must be quite overwhelming, right? Like, WoW? I don't know. There's so many random weird systems.
Areas designed for large groups of high-level players, referred to as raids, but they were commonly out in the open world, which resulted in having to compete against one another for kill credit. Due to this, there was...
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. In that sense, Final Fantasy is a lot more simple, I would say. Like, there's many things in it, but like, even the bosses and stuff, they're like quite universal language, you know, like anyone can figure it out, literally almost anybody, you know, that has played a game. Whereas in WoW, I don't know if it's like that.
There was a greater sense of urgency to complete the raid in its entirety in one sitting,
I guess
before any other guild had the chance to catch up and bring unwanted competition. Marathon sessions of guilds setting up 24-hour shifts was a common strategy to maintain dominion of these raids, in many cases to the detriment of the health of the players. This Final Fantasy XI boss was engaged for 18 hours until players were forced to quit after they began to faint and vomit. Though this boss in particular was nerfed shortly after the incident.
After 18 hours?
Though this player maintained dominion of guilds setting up 24-hour shifts was a common strategy to maintain dominion of these raids, in many cases to the detriment of the health of the players. This Final Fantasy XI boss was engaged for 18 hours until players were forced to quit after they began to faint and vomit. Though this boss in particular was nerfed shortly after the incident, this was the state of the endgame for most MMOs in these early stages.
Okay.
However, World of Warcraft had been one of the first.
Wait, the combat took 18 hours. I thought they progressed it for 18 hours. Okay.
First MMOs to standardize instanced raids, where players and guilds could create their own unique raid instances, resetting on a weekly basis. And as for the raid bosses themselves, although today seen as archaic and simplistic, at the time they were quite advanced. In a genre where raid bosses boiled down to having a unique name with a higher health pool and increased damage, World of Warcraft would add unique, and often at the time, complex mechanics that required teamwork and thought to overcome, which in turn would become one of the game's major selling points. And after a long alpha and beta testing period, the moment of truth came on November 23rd, 2004.
Was there a queue even back then?
Its strategy of appealing to the casual gamer worked well. A little too well. Blizzard in no way was prepared for the frenzy of players eager to get into the world. Disconnects, lag, and rollbacks would persist heavily for the opening months, and still consistently through the next couple of years. Forums daily would be filled with outrage, demands for a refund, and even threats of lawsuits. The miraculous thing about it, though, is that it didn't even seem to slow its growth. The launch today is looked at as disastrous, and yet still, people came back again and again.
Well, I bet that's why they didn't fix the launches for so long. They were like, why change the winning thing, you know? When there was queues, we got a lot of people. We got a lot of new customers, so let's put queues all the time.
Playable, maybe 50% of the time, hold such a demand. Well, it's because it was that good. Years of development had paid off, as World of Warcraft quickly became a hit, almost immediately dwarfing all competition at the time and robbing them of their player bases.
There was one unfortunate thing. The unfortunate thing was it launched right when WoW launched. Yep. So WoW brought the whole industry down, not just us. Every online game out there went down as soon as WoW went out. WoW was like a huge succubus of players went over there and drove into WoW. And it drove all our numbers down.
60 levels of progression and a world of challenges awaited the eager player base, and there would be many landmark moments just waiting to be claimed. Players rushed to the max level, and the title of the world first level 60 went to a player named Zenith, a troll rogue on the Stormreaver server on December 3rd, 2004, a little less than 2 weeks after release. By today's standards,
why didn't they just AoE level
incredibly
boys?
slow, but back then, a no-life nerd, as onlookers weren't shy of expressing. On January 30th, 2005, the game would see its first raid cleared with the death of Anixia, taken down by the Guild Ruined on the Proudmoore server, and many players for the first time got to see the famed epic quality items that she hoarded.
Well, not only do they have the PCs and shit, they even record it. It's crazy.
Blizzard would spend the following years perfecting their craft. As their subscriber base increased, so too did their budget,
Legends.
and more servers would quickly be added to support the booming player base. New patches would not only release new raid tiers, but also systems, items, and much more. And in May of the same year, the subscriber base would see its biggest surge for the next decade.
Okay guys, these eggs have given us a lot of trouble in the past. Does anybody need anything off this guy, or can we...
One of the earliest videos to go viral in the World of Warcraft was created by the guild Pals for Life. The guild was strategizing on how to clear out a particularly tricky room in the upper Blackrock Spire raid.
I think it's a pretty good plan. We should be able to pull it off this time. What do you think, Abdul? Can you give me a number crunch real quick?
When I see this, I instantly think of Narco, yeah?
I'm coming up with 32.33, repeating of course, percentage of survival.
Oh, that's a lot better than we usually do.
Alright, thumbs up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Dragons!
Oh my god, he just ran in.
Save him! Oh jeez, stick to the plane!
Oh Jesus, let's go.
Stick to the plane!
And in the midst of the conversation, a group member, Leroy, charges in prematurely with reckless abandon, causing the death of the entire group.
I can't move, am I lagging, guys? I can't move!
What the hell?
I can't aim!
Oh my god.
The eggs keep respawning!
More respawning! I don't think you can cast with that shit.
Oh my god!
We got him!
I got it!
Take it off!
Come on, stay down.
Oh my god.
Why would someone do this?
Leroy.
The video was later revealed to be staged, but nonetheless, it caught on like wildfire, and it was shared across multiple websites.
I didn't know it was
forums,
staged.
Making it one of the first videos for World of Warcraft to gain viral popularity. Onlookers were intrigued. Word of mouth proved to be a prolific advertising vehicle for the game. It's hard to say today just how many people watched the video, as some of the uploads have been lost. The original upload on Warcraft Movies today sits at nearly 19 million views, and the original YouTube mirror reached at least 46 million before it was taken down. And surviving mirrors today sit at a total combined count of around 24 million. Regardless, it's by far the most viewed Warcraft-related video, even to this day, over 15 years later. It was so popular, in fact, that it was later featured as a question in the trivia show Jeopardy! Just a few months later in November.
This role-playing game, out in 2004, returns to the world of Azeroth where heroes like Leroy Jenkins do battle. And that would be the world of Warcraft.
Pathetic.
Exactly, dude.
The Leroy craze wasn't the only phenomenon to spawn from the game, though. September of 2005 saw the release of the Zul'Gurub raid, the final encounter of which was a boss named Hakar. He had an ability called Corrupted Blood, which dealt some damage to a player, and if they were to stand too close to another...
I wish I was old enough to play this, man, back in the days. I was not really like allowed to play that much PC. Thank you, my parents. Great job you did. I could have been some... Imagine how much better I could have been if I was allowed to play. Damn, dude, whew, my brain is just blowing up. No, but I could play some WoW, obviously. But I couldn't like do raids or something, you know? Like when your mother wants you to throw the garbage out or something, it's over. What do you type? Like, yeah, I'm AFK, guys. And they're like, yep, food is ready. You gotta we eat together as Family's Day. It's over. Raid is over. I need to leave again. So I couldn't really commit to raids or anything. I only did like BGs and, you know, World PvP and stuff like that. Could have been the best player in WoW Vanilla. That would have been giving me so much skill, dude.
It would spread to that person. In a contained environment, it's just another raid mechanic. That is, until one player, intentionally or otherwise, managed to create a virtual pandemic that spread across every single server. The mechanic had one fatal flaw. By getting a pet companion afflicted with the disease and then dismissing it, it would persist when the pet is summoned once more. This person did just that.
I thought he did Hearthstone.
In a crowded area and spread the affliction to every nearby player and NPC, and as long as there were living hosts, there was no escape. Entire cities became infected by the plague. Word quickly spread, and
this
other
still happens on
players
PTR quite
intentionally
often.
started spreading the disease. Ironforge, Stormwind, Orgrimmar, every major capital city was a death hub and was uninhabitable by lower-level players. The spread would continue to go on for days until Blizzard eventually hotfixed the disease, but the resulting chaos remains to this day to be one of the most memorable moments in the game's history, and has even been used in real-world research of the spread and reaction of contagious diseases.
I wonder if Blizzard sees that, because it took them days to fix it. I wonder if they see that and they're like, fuck it, you know what? This looks a little bit fun. Let them get destroyed for a couple of days and then we're gonna fix it after. Or if they're just lazy. I'm not sure. Always wondering if they're like big braining it somehow.
Though there are many memorable landmark moments in the game's history, some are more controversial than others. In 2006, on the Illidan server, a player by the name of Phajin passed away suddenly from a stroke, and in memoriam of one of her favorite activities, fishing, her guild had decided to host an in-game funeral service
I know this
to
one.
pay one final tribute to
this
her. There were two problems, though.
It sounds sad, but it's gonna turn in a way that you wouldn't expect if you don't notice.
Where players of the opposite faction could freely attack one another. A guild, Serenity Now, saw the thread, and they felt that they would join in to pay tribute, but in a very different way. Having snuck through a nearby tunnel leading into the zone, an entire raid team prepared to crash the funeral. As players lined up to pay tribute to their friend, the raid quickly closed in on the location.
This is so
and
sad.
To make matters worse,
This is so disrespectful as well.
Many of the attendees had unequipped their armor and weapons, leaving them defenseless against the surprise onslaught.
If you did this now, you would get banned.
The funeral was quickly and easily dispatched. Serenity Now would become infamous on their server, and the crash still stands today as one of the most controversial in-game events in its entire history. All of these moments serve a crucial role in the telling of the history of the game, and they would serve as a reminder of the reasons why it became such a success. It's due not only to its own merits, but perhaps even more drastically by the community that the world of Azeroth was comprised of. This world, however, was about to change.
How many of you have played World of Warcraft?
Due to the success of World of Warcraft, Blizzard for the first time held their own event. a convention centered solely around Blizzard games named BlizzCon. This was, and remains to be, a unique aspect of the developer to hold a personalized convention tailored to their products, a form of celebration of not only the games that they're creating, but also the already massive community that they've built. The strong focus on the community would be something that Blizzard would become known for, and it created a loyalty of sorts from the players. It felt like it was more than a game. It was a community of people sharing their combined love and passion for the worlds that they created.
You guys take care of us, man. You guys really take care of us.
Diablo, StarCraft, Warcraft. Fans from around the world would plan vacations around it. Longtime friends and guildmates would meet each other in person for the first time, and BlizzCon as a whole would become a very crucial part of Blizzard's identity.
I feel like some animal that they fed, and like, you know, like they took care of us. They fed us, gave us food, made sure we're fine, we're healthy, and now we're getting fucking slaughtered, dude.
And in the very first convention, held in October of 2005, a bombshell announcement was unveiled. The World of Warcraft is about to get bigger with the release of its first expansion, the Burning Crusade.
This was super hype.
The expansion boasted what players had come to expect from the World of Warcraft and more. They would step into the world of the Outland and progress through 10 more character levels, new zones, talents, dungeons, spells, raids, races, a profession, a new PvP system, and much more. It would add on to and improve in just about every aspect of the game. But it's still 2005, and there's a lot of game left to conquer before players began worrying about their foray into the Outland. There were dragons to kill and DKP to acquire.
Odd groups go to left, even groups go to right. That means 1, 3, 5, 7 left, 2, 4, 6, 8 right.
In the game, you had casual, hardcore, and everything in between, and there were some who took it even further beyond.
No reason to lose main tank, and I am blaming you, because I blame I can fucking do it, everyone can do it. Do it right. This is bullshit!
Videos of a more serious or angry nature would start to spring up at this point. Those of raid leaders chewing out members for failing and properly performing the mechanics of a boss fight.
Well,
Crush him was fair and turret.
Who the fuck was that? Crush him! What the fuck? Whelps! Left side! Even side! Many whelps! Now handle it! Fuck!
The most prolific of which being Dives, the raid leader of the guild, Wipe Club. Onyxia at this point had been slain by numerous guilds, and after some unsuccessful attempts, one of the members decided to record what would later become one of the biggest meltdowns in history, the Onyxia wipe animation.
That's a fucking 50 DKP minus! What the fuck was that shit?
Much like Leroy, the animation would quickly become popular. And
I actually never got
the frustrating
too
side
angry
of coordinating 40 people and clearing the challenging raids.
Don't play
except
like
like
you're just
2-3
fucking going
times.
through the motions. You'll get your goddamn loot eventually. Oh, damn it! Fucking bullshit!
Yeah, I know. Well, we're all gonna get attacked because we have no warlock here. Nice job, you fucking idiots!
Hey, shut the fuck up! You stupid fuck! Stop!
These videos would paint players in a much less flattering light, as many people would become so obsessed that they would shirk real-life responsibilities and fall out of contact with friends, quit work or school, and in the most extreme cases cause harm to themselves or others. In Korea of June of 2005, the 4-month-old child of a couple would suffocate when left unsupervised for several hours, as the parents were playing World of Warcraft in an internet cafe. The phrase World of Warcrack was coined.
What? They left the baby at home and went to the internet cafe to play WoW? That is crazy. That is crazy. I gotta puke almost. Oh my god. Wow.
Shedding light on the dark side of video game addiction, particularly that of MMOs and the consequences
I needed to pee almost. Holy fuck, that's disgusting.
obsession, something that the media was not shy of reporting, as World of Warcraft, due to its popularity, would find itself at the center of this war against video game addiction.
Computer games, he's playing them an incredible 16 hours a day. His mother says his personality has changed and that he's become moody and violent, and his addiction is tearing the family apart.
To many, it was more than a game. It was a virtual life with the graphical interface.
Maybe I'm glad that my parents didn't let me play more. Maybe it was the right decision to do it, even though I missed out on the vanilla rates.
Attracted people from all walks of life and blended them together in the chaos of this online world.
Well, I don't know. 16 hours to us is weak, but maybe if you're younger, right? If you're a child, it might like fuck your brain up, I guess. I don't know. Could be. At the same time, maybe the guy just hit puberty or something, and the parents were like, he has mood swings. Man, what is going on with him?
As players got to discover and explore its features, and shortly after, World of Warcraft would become the focus of the cartoon series South Park, with their Make Love, Not Warcraft episode. The episode detailed the boys' fight against a hacker antagonist and their struggle with video game addiction.
Oh, that's a big boy, isn't he?
Though on release, it wasn't.
I never watched this episode, and I was glad up until now. Thank you.
Instant success.
MadSeasonShow.
Many years later, series co-creator Trey Parker detailed his worries with the episode, revealing that he even tried to get it pulled as he feared that it simply wasn't funny. But as history has shown, the episode would become an instant success, and despite the fact that the series at this point now has over 300 episodes, it remains to be one of their most popular to this day.
Looks like you're about to get pwned. Yeah!
Holy shit. That's pretty brutal. Listen, I know. I just don't watch South Park.
January 16th.
I don't like the humor that much. I don't know why.
Marked the beginning of a new era, the official end of vanilla World of Warcraft. People lined up outside of stores and tents in the freezing cold. Launch parties were held, and the community was stronger than ever, and pulled together with their one shared trait, their fear of women. Their collective love for the game. At this point, it had amassed roughly 8 million subscribers by the expansion's release, never once reporting a loss, and holding on to the lion's share of the market. And the subscription base rose even more rapidly as players explored the dangerous reaches of the Outland.
I still think even today,
and the gap
I think
between
WoW could, and even more actually. I think, you know what, you saw that graph where it's rising like a fucking freak, right? Like it's rising like a maniac game. I think it could do that same thing. Like I was just the last minute, like I was wondering, like, is it the fact that MMORPGs are just not working out anymore in the, is it just the wrong time in the, in our life cycle? It just doesn't fit. Like 2020, it's just no more MMORPG time. I don't think so, man. Because you know why I don't think so? Because first of all, people are looking for an MMO game to play all the time. You saw a New World release, the amount of people that played it was pretty insane. But then it all dropped because the game was not good enough. You see how Final Fantasy is rising now. I think that's because it's really good. But I think, I truly believe that WoW could, really, I'm not saying they will do it, because it's very unlikely seeing how they do things. But if they could do good decisions, and I'm not saying it's like it would be a super easy either. I'm not saying I have the right decisions or something, but if they could do it good, I think they could really pop off. I think they can get 15, 20 million subscribers, no problem. I mean, not no problem. It would be hard, but I'm saying it's not like, the time is over. It's 2021. It's never possible. Never gonna go above 5 million or something like this. There's just so many things you can do, man. I don't know. When was WoW at 10 mil before? More than 3.3 million and sent the game subscription. Warlords of Draenor. Warlords of Draenor. Jesus fuck. Okay. So one of the worst expansions in my opinion. I don't know. I really don't think that it would be too hard to get to that number, and if not more.
The next expansion, The Wrath of the Lich King, was announced.
I think Wild Lich King was the biggest expansion in WoW.
Players were teased of the
personally.
land of Northrend, where they had once visited in the events of Warcraft III. It's here where they would face off against Arthas Menethil as the Lich King. 10 more levels, a new class, the Death Knight, new zones, and siege vehicle combat were just a few of the many new features.
It could have been also
teased at
because
the convention,
I
due
could
to the
play it a lot
success of
more.
the Burning Crusade, there was
Like,
little
I was
question
just-
if
I
it would
grew
be
up,
just
so
as
I could
good.
play a lot more PC games,
2008 came, and on the 1-year anniversary of the release of the Burning Crusade, World of Warcraft hit a landmark 10 million subscribers, absolutely dwarfing any and all competition. The up-and-coming contender, The Age of Conan, saw its release.
one sec.
World of Warcraft hit a lane.
Oh look, it reached 10 mil already at 2008, bro. I was 16 years old or something there. Wait, no, 15 years old. When I was 15 years old, definitely there's definitely not everybody with a PC or something. This definitely could go a lot higher. It's still impressive though.
In July, in a bombshell announcement at the height of the game's popularity,
Especially
the
for a
power
bad-
of the dark
I mean,
side could be
non-successful game.
resisted no longer, as Blizzard's parent
Lopez.
company, Vivendi, announced a merger with Activision, already having gained a reputation for excessive monetization and driving franchises and developers to an early grave.
Wait, one sec.
Excessive
Sierra Entertainment. Didn't they create Caesar 3? Double games. I don't know that one. Bizarre. I don't know any of these games.
monetization and driving franchises and developers to an early
I think
grave.
Sierra was good, alright? Sierra. Wait, was Sierra Diablo 2 was it from them or what? I don't know. I feel like they had good games. The rest, I don't know. Diablo 2 is from Blizzard, right?
Many were dismayed at the news, fearing that the same would become true for their beloved franchises, including the World of Warcraft. Along with EA, they would gain the reputation of exploiting the player base to the fullest extent, and spearheads today one of the largest focus on cash shops and pay-to-win game design. And just 1 year later, in September of 2009, Activision Blizzard would release the paid faction change service, and 1 month after that, the paid race change service, along with in-game collectible pets. These services were seen by many as an affront on the integrity of the game, and although not terribly impactful by themselves, it was believed that they would serve as a gateway for more damaging paid services to be introduced later. In September of 2008, the release date for the Wrath of the Lich King expansion became set in stone for November of the same year. Just as it was back in 2006, the clock began ticking for players to finish their activities in the Burning Crusade before the content was made to be irrelevant, and due to the difficulty of the raiding scene in general, they had their hands full. There was quite a long drought between the final patch of the Burning Crusade and the launch of Wrath, nearly 8 months, but players didn't seem to mind due to the success and lingering challenge that the expansion had to offer. Those who thought otherwise, though, sought to fill in this void with the release of the highly anticipated Warhammer Online, which saw its release in September. But was it enough to succeed where the Lord of the Rings Online and Age of Conan failed? Shortly after, the Wrath of the Lich King expansion saw its release, and Blizzard would once more break sales records. Players charged into Northrend with new zones to explore, dungeons and raids to conquer, and a new class to discover. The Death Knight was what everyone expected and more. A lot more. Way too much, in fact, as many saw them to be far too powerful on release. They would later be tuned down in upcoming patches. Replayability was amplified as the achievement system was implemented, and players could collect points, titles, mounts, and more through this new feature aimed towards completionists. It would receive positive reviews of its many new features and improvements, and the subscriptions continued their upward trend, eventually peaking.
I think achievements would be so much more fun if there was just less of them, dude. I don't think you need an achievement for every little fucking stone you turn or I don't know, the smallest thing you can do. Like, I lifted this bottle of water. Woo, good job, Scripe. 10 achievement points. I drank water. Another 10. Let's go. That's fucking achievements for everything.
At 12 million, just as with the Burning
made
Crusade,
me never care about
it
them.
seemed to be unstoppable, though it would be where the first sign of weakness showed. Through the numbers that have been made public, there wasn't a single moment where Wrath had lost subscriptions between reports, but it was also the first expansion where they had stopped gaining subscribers, as they hovered around 11 to 12 million throughout the course of the expansion, and as shown, it wasn't due to any of these would-be WoW killers. In August of the same year, the raiding scene expanded in a big way, as the third raid tier for the expansion, the Trial of the Crusader, would release with the heroic difficulty setting. Previously, if players saw an extra challenge with the encounters, they could impose boss-specific hurdles or restrictions upon themselves for bonus loot, achievements, and bragging rights. Players would now instead toggle this.
I actually wonder why it didn't rise on World of the Stream, because I don't think it was bad. Like, what are you guys saying? Why did it not rise on World of Wrath of the Lich King? I think that was a pretty good expansion, right? I think they made the attunements a lot easier, if at all even required, for things. So that made people raid a lot more, I think, compared to TBC. The queuing system started. You didn't have to DM the players all the time. Wait, no, the queue system was there on TBC, but now you could queue for the highest difficulty dungeons. Which was, you know, you had to farm them quite a lot, so that was a thing.
This optional difficulty setting before entering the raid, and every boss within would deal more damage, take more damage, and gain extra mechanics in exchange for better quality loot. This, along with the mythic raiding mode to be introduced later, would become a landmark change in the core design of the game, aimed to increase accessibility by greatly lowering the base normal difficulty and funneling those seeking a greater challenge into this optional difficulty setting. This change in design would later be accelerated in the next expansion, the Cataclysm, which would be unveiled in BlizzCon 2009.
That will very literally change the face of the world of Azeroth as you know it. Ladies and gentlemen,
show us.
I give you World of Warcraft Cataclysm.
The world of Azeroth was about to change for good, as the entire old world was deemed to be outdated by 2009 standards.
What do you guys think? Do you think this was a good move or a bad move? Changing the whole world? I don't know. It looked really nice when I looked at the trailer and stuff. But then when I played it, it again felt quite good the very first time. But then, over time, I feel like it didn't age well. I really miss the old zones, how they were, you know?
Standards. This expansion's
just because of the nostalgic feeling,
Deathwing
probably,
would
but
ravage the
still,
Eastern Kingdoms in Kalimdor, reshaping them visually and mechanically by reworking each quest. Players would be able to explore all of these changes from the comfort of their flying mounts, which were now enabled in the old world. Two new races, the Worgen for the Alliance and the Goblin for the Horde, would also make their debut, as well as a reworked talent system. The game was to go over its biggest makeover to date, and whether it was for the better or worse was yet to be seen. December marked the month of another hallmark feature being added to the game, the Dungeon Finder. No longer did players have to travel the world to run to their favorite dungeons.
Wasn't that already there in Wrath of the Lich King?
As this tool matchmaked them together and teleported the party directly to the entrance. At the time, this feature was received with overwhelmingly positive feedback and a welcome quality of life improvement. Though restricted to players only on their server at the time of its launch, it would later be opened up to other servers, which had the unintended side effect of alienating the community from each other. Previously, having to manually form groups had served as a critical
came towards the end of the
natural way
probably,
for players to meet one another and make friends, and they would soon learn the downsides of automating the process. By handling the formation of the group automatically, social interaction was replaced with convenience, and the social aspect critical to MMO gameplay suffered as a result. By itself, this negative impact of the system would remain relatively minor, but in the coming years, players would notice a trend of eliminating these critical social structures in the name of convenience and at the cost of the game's sense of community, which many claim to be one of the biggest features to which it owed its success. The community would also see changes outside of the game. In July of 2010, Blizzard unveiled their new Real ID
This kind of
system,
stuff, I mean,
where they're
it's-
supporting
yeah, it's
forums
good, but
for
it
all of
breaks
their
the
games,
immersion, yeah.
not just World of Warcraft, would no longer display character names when posting, but rather real names tied to the account. Players and onlookers alike reacted with concern of Blizzard's disregard of basic privacy rights,
I didn't know about
deeming
that.
that their actions would essentially dox the entire forum community. Doxing is the act of unearthing someone's personal information, such as their name or address, with the ultimate goal of real-life harassment. Today, the advent of swatting shows the repercussions of those whose personal information was leaked.
Put your hands up! Put your hands up!
For a company to do the work for them was seen as extremely dangerous. Flame wars and online disputes, past, present, and future, would serve as vessels for real-life harassment, they argued. They stated that the reason for the change was to cut down on forum trolling, their logic being that if someone's real name was tied to their post, they'd think more carefully about how they treat others, and that, quote, removing the veil of anonymity, typical to online dialogue, will contribute to a more positive forum environment and connect the Blizzard community in ways that they haven't been connected before. Another community manager put it to the test, and in an effort to quell the players' fear, he posted his real-life name. Within 1 day, players found and published his address, phone number, age, and took to placing false pizza orders in his name, and even placed death threats. Connect took to players.
One employee dared to give us a name in a show of confidence of Blizzard's pride. Are the employees already not known? I mean, I guess you already know who's I know, you know, Ian has it cost us. It's not like it's a secret, right? I guess maybe he was not a known person. I don't know, but yeah, this was also
Found and published his address, phone number, age, and took to placing false pizza orders in his name, and even placed death threats, connecting him with the community in ways that he's never been connected before. Shortly after, the co-founder of Blizzard, Mike Morhaime, stepped in and announced that they had rescinded their plans of publishing the players' real names. In October, Blizzard pinned down a release date for the Cataclysm expansion, December 7th of the same year, and despite the controversy, the game in October would reach its peak subscriber count of 12 million. The holidays came, and the Day of Reckoning was at hand, and the World of Warcraft would suffer Cataclysm in more ways than one. In addition to the retuned Old World, the talent system would also see an overhaul, altering the traditional freeform 3-tree talent system into specializations. Players would be forced to pick just one, and lose access to many spells iconic to the other two. The trees as a whole would also be simplified, and the amount of points to invest reduced. Class and item balance in general would also be at the forefront of changes in the expansion, mostly through the form of removal. Spell ranks were removed, and all abilities now just had one rank.
It's really hard to tell though if those changes were good or not. Like, I can honestly not tell, even to this day. Like, I enjoyed the old talent trees, but honestly, I'm not like super against this current system either. You know, in terms like I don't like how they make talents that they are not, that they're basically useless, that they're useless basically. You know, talents that they don't get used to whole expansion long, but design-wise, like, is this really bad? I don't know. Like, I couldn't tell, honestly. You know, you can say that, like, it was stupid that they removed this specific talent, but, like, the system that they changed, I don't think that's necessarily the problem. Maybe it was, and I wouldn't be able to tell if it was. You know, I can see somebody saying, like, you know what, we want to get new players not be overwhelmed by the talent tree, so we're gonna make it simple yet still, you know, somewhat min-maxable, so we think this is a good idea. I wouldn't be like, no, that's shocking, that's horrible what you're saying, don't do it. I wouldn't have like tweeted out, don't do it, Blizzard, if they said, like, back then, if I you know, had a fully grown out brain and was actually thinking about this stuff.
That scaled with your level, and were trained automatically, and much more. The Cataclysm expansion is seen by many to mark the point when the RPG and MMORPG was made to be lowercase, as it transformed into a much simpler version of an already straightforward game. As World of Warcraft strayed further and further away from its social and RPG roots, a community of private server players would grow larger and larger with each expansion. Independent groups took to hosting past versions of the game, the most prolific of which being of its original state, referred to as vanilla. Though its beginnings were humble, this private server community would eventually grow large enough to become a problem for Blizzard, and they would find themselves embroiled in legal battles to protect their IP from infringement, and would
Hey, you think you do, but you don't. When was that?
eventually influence a major developed project many years later.
Some years, I
Regardless, they showed once more that they had no difficulty in selling expansions, as once again, they broke their own sales record with Cataclysm, selling a staggering 3.3 million copies on release day. But unlike the previous expansions, they had not seen an overall increase in subscribers post-release, instead remaining steady at the 12 million mark it had been stuck at since the beginning of 2009. And for the first time since its inception in 2004, the World of Warcraft would see a loss in reported subscribers. In fact, Cataclysm would fail to gain subscribers in a single reported quarter in its near 2-year run,
breaking point
discounting
is
the
right
release
there.
of the next expansion, The Mists of Pandora,
point of no return.
which would be announced in October.
Here we go, boys.
The initial reaction would be very mixed. The theme of the expansion was so unexpected that many thought it to be an out-of-season April Fool's joke. Players would explore.
This was the worst looking expansion that turned out to be actually quite good. You know what I mean? Like when I saw MOP, I was like, are they trolling? And then I played it and was like, that's actually good. But looking at it first, I would have never expected that, you know, this can't be that good, really.
The mysterious world of Pandora, with a new race, the Pandaren, and a new class, the Monk. Dungeons were getting a special challenge mode to bring relevancy once more to 5-man content, and scenarios would be queuable micro-dungeons designed for 3 players, and the pet battle system was also implemented, a minigame reminiscent of the popular Pokemon franchise. As for the talent system, it would be simplified even further into the tier system, offering more impactful
I'm not
choices,
judging you, it's fine.
but at a reduced quantity of just 6
fine.
points to invest. And most controversially, cross-realm zones would eventually be implemented, where players...
Oof, this is just... obviously, this is the thing that they never did, yeah? Wait, no. Crossroad... I don't know. Actually, never mind. I didn't mean crossroad. I meant sharding type of things. Okay.
Players of differing realms
I don't
would be
know how
able
I
to
feel like
see
crossroad.
and
I think
interact with
probably
one
shit,
another.
yeah.
Due to the falling
shit.
subscriber base brought on by the Cataclysm, there were far too many servers running for the dwindling player base, and as a result, the worlds were starting to become barren. By grouping servers together, Blizzard aimed once more to breathe life into the world of Azeroth. While many looked at the expansion as something new and fresh,
Like if a server is weak, you know, just merge it with another server. Done. Or like I don't know. That's how I would solve it.
many more would be immediately turned off by its aesthetics, and due to the downward trend in subscriptions, skepticism if it would be a success was at an all-time high. This was still far into the future though, and the current focus remained to be Cataclysm, which at this point was still steadily losing subscribers. In November, along with the final raid, Dragon Soul, the LFR system would see its release. Similar to the Dungeon Finder released in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, this would allow players to matchmake with others in a queue-based raiding mode, doubling down on their design of trading away critical social and RPG functions for the sake of convenience and accessibility. To accommodate for the increased disorganization that came with queue-based matchmaking, the difficulty would be lowered even further than that of the base normal difficulty. It was from this point forward that players no longer needed to even join a guild. It was from this point below.
The problem is like in LFR, you don't even have an incentive. Like, you know, it's it's one thing to not being organized, like he says. You know, like these guys, like I don't even know this boss fight, but I see these people too running here. I'm gonna guess they have to run here, right? Like you would think that. You see, if you play Final Fantasy and you're like, this, everybody moves here with this specific thing, I should probably move there. Yeah. The thing is, if you fail, it doesn't even matter.
That of the base normal difficulty.
Nope.
It
Everybody
was from
is
this
alive
point
still.
forward that players no longer
It's completely
needed
pointless.
to even join a guild to experience the endgame content. They didn't need to read strategies, and they didn't even need to speak a
So
single
they don't even
word.
try to
In
learn.
fact, as Blizzard deemed it an issue that 100% of the player base were not completing these raids in their entirety, the accomplishment of clearing a raid would be more accessible than ever before, but as a result, the accomplishment would mean nothing from this point forward. Time marched on, and the Mists of Pandaria expansion would release in the month of September, and for the first time since the release of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, they saw an increase in subscriptions, though the eagerness of the player base was notably diminished, as this would be the first expansion to fail in breaking sales records for Blizzard upon release, falling 30% below than that of Cataclysm. Barring this initial surge, they would be unable to halt the downward trend that had begun since the launch of Cataclysm, as subscribers would quickly drop from 10 million at launch to 9 million, then 8, and around 6.8 at its lowest point, a drop of over 30%, and the players were starting to feel the effect of a world that grew less active with each passing day. Crossrealm officially saw its release, which would make the world seem sprawling once more, but once again at the expense of the server's community, which would be present only in name from this point forward. Seeing the same players and guilds on your server consistently turned out to be an integral part of establishing a community that was only realized once it was taken away. The world once more had players in it, but due to the large amount of servers that would be grouped together, players scarcely saw or recognized other players from previous adventures. The basis to form a community, which had been a key reason for its success.
I think they should still go back on it, dude.
Memory.
Fuck it.
The world was in a predicament.
I think they should
Blizzard
still
had
go
a
back on
difficult problem to solve.
Crossrealm
A
gaming.
nearly empty world with little community, or a full world, ironically enough, with no community. Though innocent enough on launch, Crossrealm is seen today as a necessary evil for a problem, which true solution lies in recapturing
I
subscribers.
wonder, what do you guys think? If they removed Dungeon Finder for the hardest content now, do you think that would be a good thing or a bad thing? Like in the current World of Warcraft. I mean, I'm not saying like that's the thing that will fix WoW, but I'm not sure if it would be necessarily a horrible thing.
Now lost, an issue that Blizzard would struggle with for years to come, as the once iconic
I meant cross-server removal for open world stuff at least, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe you're right.
MMORPG now barely resembled an MMO due to its destroyed social structures, and barely an RPG due to its abandoned RPG elements, which would be taken a step further in March of 2013 as the game saw another major change with its first instance of forged loot. Released with the Throne of Thunder raid, loot had the potential to have an increased quality, regardless of the difficulty at which the
I don't know. This was not the death of World of Warcraft, but this was death of me inside, bro. This was my death. This was the death of my time. Oh my goodness.
players defeated the bosses, having previously lost longevity in the raiding scene.
And it's only the
through
beginning.
reduced base difficulty, they had hoped to regain it via randomized loot, and although it was relatively tame at the time of its release, this foraging system would later be seen by many to get out of hand, and help diminish and confuse the reward structure that had been standard for the game for 8 years at that point. Time passed, patches released, new raids and systems debuted, and much changed with the expansion in the year of 2013. Something that didn't though was this ongoing downward trend of subscribers. In BlizzCon 2013, Blizzard would announce its next expansion, the Warlords of Draenor. The player base would journey back to the world of Draenor, an alternate reality before it was corrupted into what they knew as the Outland in the Burning Crusade expansion. It's here where they would establish forward bases known as garrisons and launch a campaign.
Garrisons were the most disgusting thing of this expansion. Especially, and the stupid thing is they could have made it okay. Could have made it pretty good, I think. Okay, garrisons were the stupidest thing for people who were tryharding. For people who were playing for fun, one character, they're just chilling, maybe it was fun. I don't know. But for people, for raiders who were actually trying to push, or people who were trying to push their skills to the max, you know, and compete, it was fucking disgusting. Like, you had to get the same followers on, I think we had back then like 6 characters or something. Oh, you go and collect the followers through quest lines, and then you need to level them up. And then you go on your next character, and you do the same thing. And you go on your next character, and you do the same thing. And you go on the next character, you do the same thing. The same followers, the same quest lines. And you did it all. And then you got one item. You did it to get an item. Like, it didn't even give you a lot. And it had nothing to do with the game that you wanted to play. It has nothing to do with raiding. Collecting those followers, it had nothing to do with it. It wasn't hard. It wasn't like any challenge. It wasn't an adventure that you're entering. Nothing. No. You just... And even if it was fucking 6 times in a row, dude. Man, that was disgusting.
Hellscream, the leader of the United Orc Army, known as the Iron Horde, were set to invade the land of Azeroth.
So much.
At this point, the private server community had gained considerable traction as players yearned for the game that had...
Is it okay to say on stream that you played private servers? Or is that TOS? Not that I'm saying that I did.
Originally captivated them, and were becoming more and more unruly as the retail version strayed further and further away from its roots, and they began campaigning Blizzard to officially develop and support this past version of the game.
I've definitely played private servers that were
during the convention. One such player asked for an official answer on the possibility of a legacy server. The question was fielded by J. Allen Brack, at the time a production director for World of Warcraft, and he delivered this now infamous answer.
Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that.
He says, have you ever thought about it? He's not even saying, like, do you think it's a good idea? He's saying, have you ever thought about it? I said, no. How the fuck can you have never thought about it? What the fuck is your job then?
Either. You think you do, but you don't. Remember when you had to, like, spam cities and say, need a tank, need a tank, need a tank during the Burning Crusade days? You don't remember that because now you just push a button that says go to the dungeon. You don't want to do that.
Though the quote would draw immediate ire of the legacy community, it would prove to be an integral moment in its development, serving as a rallying cry of sorts, and bringing more and more attention on the possibilities of developing such a version of the game. The answer was seen as dismissive and out of touch, especially considering the fact that private servers at this point had grown to new levels of popularity, and with this dismissive answer, the questions started turning into demands and discussion of its viability or not, and served to fan the flames of a community becoming increasingly disillusioned of the World of Warcraft and Blizzard in their current state. As the players were leaving, Blizzard had sought to recover financially through an increased focus and impact of their cash shop, and against all assurances previously made shortly after their merger with Activision, they would finally turn the corner in December of 2013 and officially implemented the cash shop in-game, and along with it came the most impactful service to date, the level boost. Leveling was now skippable, as players could pay $60 to immediately be fast-tracked to the maximum level and jump right into the end game.
I love the fact that people in WoW think their game is not pay to win. Like, there's legit people that play WoW and then they're like, they look at another game, I don't know, Raid Shadow Legends or something, they're like, why would I play that? That's pay to win. And then they go log into WoW. I don't know what to say.
by and large, the most impactful paid service at that point. What was at one point seen as a cornerstone of MMO design was now skippable through an officially endorsed service. The consequence and investment of picking a class, investing time into it, leveling it, and learning it were thrown away, sacrificed like many other features for convenience, accessibility, and short-term financial gain, further damaging its already crippled RPG design. The backlash was immediate, but little did players know, it was just the beginning, and the standards of paid advantage in the game would sink lower and lower in the coming years. Time passed, and two things remained constant: a decrease in subscriber count and stagnation. The final major patch of the expansion had released in September of the previous year, 2013, and other than the addition of the level boost, the game saw no updates until the Warlords of Draenor pre-patch in October of 2014, an astounding gap of 13 months in the game's development. This had marked the longest drought yet, and subscribers fled the game in record numbers, as the Mists of Pandora failed to retain the migrating player base.
Mists of Pandora was also, by the way, when I started playing the game seriously, boys. And seriously, I mean, I made my own guild, and I started raiding as a guild, and also started like raid leading as soon as I learned some English. Back then I couldn't speak English. I knew it because I was a gamer, obviously, but I couldn't speak it. In Mists, I started my own guild, and then yeah, eventually we merged with Method with my guild. Okay, I say merged. We took 4 players from them. But yeah. No, we did the echo.
November came,
yeah,
and with it, the launch of the Warlords of Draenor expansion. Despite the game's troubles, a combination of marketing and hype led to a rather successful expansion launch sales-wise. Over 3.3 million players had expansions in hand, ready to step through the Dark Portal for a second time, and subscriptions skyrocketed to 10.5 million, the highest it had been since the launch of the Mists of Pandora, and it holds the record of the largest surge in subscribers for expansion launches.
That's weird.
Though unfortunately
why,
for Blizzard, history would repeat itself in more ways than one, as once again they had failed to retain this boon as problems soon arose after launch.
Oh, that's nice. Every fucking server that I even play on is offline. Oh, yeah.
Isn't that a great premise? Really?
It looks like mine aren't the only ones.
I don't know, it sounds to me like boring. The time traveling stuff seems just very boring to me.
Servers were flooded with artificial traffic until they shut down from the strain. This would go on for several days as law enforcement investigated into the matter. Meanwhile, though, players would become increasingly frustrated
baited players
as the game remained to be mostly unplayable. The culprits were eventually stopped, but the damage had been done, and the game experienced its worst launch since its initial release in 2004. What's more, once the issues subsided, players were met with what is now widely considered to be one of the worst expansions in the game's history. The main feature of the expansion, the garrison system, isolated players in their own instance, where they could recruit followers, start an herb garden, mine and craft, and even use the auction house with the correct buildings. Although convenient, it served as yet another feature to alienate an already fractured community from each other, and the game at times seemed as if it was single player. A problem made worse by the massive hemorrhage of subscribers that was yet to come. Just as how the expansion broke subscription records on launch, it also broke records for lost subscriptions shortly after, as players saw little enjoyment from what was eventually ousted as an unfinished expansion, as many of the features previously teased would be left on the cutting room floor, including new systems, 2 major cities, battlegrounds, another zone, and even an entire raid tier, to name just a few. Time between patches would grow even larger, and the patches themselves delivered less content. The expansion held a total of just 3 major raids throughout its entirety, with every expansion preceding having at least 4. The combined effect of instanced...
I don't know, I mean, at least the raids were pretty fucking good, yeah? Like, Warlords of Draenor. I flamed Warlords of Draenor because the garrison sucked, the system sucked. Honestly, if they did nothing, and they just put the raids there, that would be already a good game. Like, it would be okay, yeah? The raids were pretty fucking good. I'm thinking Black Hand, Imperator Margok with the secret phase and the Butcher fight as a signature like patchwork fight in the game. Archimond, the invention of the Archimond Vikara. HFC in general was fucking crazy good. It was one of the worst times of my life because back then Rem was about to disband. Literally like 3 weeks or 4 weeks before the raid got released. 5 or 6 of my players suddenly quit the guild. I was like, what the fuck, boys? Why are you telling me this now? And then we tried to recruit. Maybe it was even more than 5 or 6. I think it could have been more. We also had one of our guys get banned. And then we started looking for more people and couldn't find any good players, really. It was really hard to find good players for some reason. And especially that wanted to try hard, but at the same time, not, like try hard and be good, you know? And if they were bad, they usually didn't want to try hard or they were really bad at it or something. And we were very close to disband, but we somehow made it by merging Noggi's. You guys know Noggi, perhaps. Noggi's guild. He also played Final Fantasy with us, so you probably know. And the thing is, his guild, the reason we merged with them was his guild disbanded. And his guild disbanded. It was not a very healthy guild. It was a I would say quite a toxic guild. Well, not the guild itself, but maybe some of the people inside the guild were toxic. And as always, the toxic people kept playing the game. So what happened is all the toxic players came to our guild. And it was by far the worst tier, not in terms of performance, but in terms of my mental health, that we had to endure. It was absolutely horrible. It was not actually German THC. I think, yeah, no, it was not German. Like, we literally had a guy say, fuck you all to us, and G-quit as we killed Archimond. Like, literally, we killed, and then he just went full ham and just... I mean, if he didn't leave, I was going to kick him, but... You know, that was the atmosphere. Which we never had before or after that, ever. The tier took very long as well. Good
Garrisons and players flocking away made the new world seem dead, and so more and more servers would be connected to each other in an attempt to bring life back.
And they win in Trial of Valor? You can't be saying that. It was my first word first. You can't say they won Trial of Valor. Bro, what are you doing?
Into the dying world as subscriptions plummeted to an all-time low.
I played like a fucking machine on that
vanilla
shit.
At 5.5 million. It was announced shortly after that they would no longer report subscription numbers, stating that there are better indicators of business performance.
Oh no. There are other metrics. Oh no.
Numbers, stating
there
that
it
there
starts,
are better
boys.
indicators of business performance. The message was clear. Where they had lost revenue in subscriptions, they gained several times over via the paid level boost. Success was no longer tied to a healthy player base, but rather revenue, and although looked at today...
True, I mean, if you think about it that way, a subscription, how much does it pay? 30 euros a month. Everybody bought a character change, like a race change or something. Like every single person. And obviously some people are gonna buy more. 30 euros? 13 I said. Imagine everybody buying just one race change, right? But obviously not everybody in the game that buys one race change, but some people buy like a race change and a transfer and a faction change. Some people buy nothing. But I think it would be about, like back then, I'm not sure, maybe now it could be much more. But back then, I'm gonna assume they get at least on average earn 30 euros per subscriber. That's already 3 months paid. Okay, not 3 months, two months, let's say. So they were making like almost double what they were making before, even though they lost subscribers. Crazy.
As an embarrassing period in the game's
not to their
history, financially, it
prime
lifted
times,
the
obviously,
developer
but
to new heights. Combined with other cash shop services, the level boost and the Warlords of Draenor played a large role in Activision Blizzard's best financial quarter to date. The influence of the cash shop now fully realized, it would be taken
I completely forgot about this.
a step further in March of 2015 with the addition of the WoW token, where players could exchange real money for in-game
I take it back with the 30 euros or whatever per player. They make way more money.
gold, or on the other hand, use gold to purchase a token to pay for the subscription fee, or convert it into a balance only spendable on Blizzard products. Regardless of the method, it would prove to be a massive commercial success for Activision Blizzard, earning them record profits during record low subscriptions. A long time had passed since the cash shop's initial rise in 2008. Those who warned of the dangerous path that World of Warcraft was set on saw their predictions unfold slowly over the course of several years. At this point in the game's history, it was possible to buy levels, it was possible to buy currency, and with this currency, you could buy items and even services from other players, such as raid or arena carries, and the list of things that you couldn't buy was now far shorter than the list of things that you could buy. It was at this point that the game was deemed by many to be pay to win, as real-life purchases now had a clear and heavy impact on the power levels between different players.
Looking at this whole thing, and like, you know, I think on my WoW improvement ideas, I did probably write remove WoW token. Maybe. Even if I didn't, I said make gear less relevant and make game less pay to win. But looking at the system, I don't think there's a single, you know, chance that they will even consider it, because that's how they make money. Like if you take that away, how are they gonna make money? It's impossible. Which is quite sad, because you know, like it's not gonna change. They will need to completely change their business model. You know, how they monetize this game. I mean, not the business model completely, but you know, the monetization of the game, they would need to completely change. And I think they could, but I don't think they will. Yeah, just like why do it if it works?
Behavior that previously warranted suspensions was now officially endorsed and advertised, and any semblance of integrity the game had left was abandoned. Though at this point, subscriptions were no longer being reported, morale of the game's future continued to decline.
I wonder why did they report them for so long? Stop at the worst time. Now it makes them look like really bad, right? Like I would have stopped reporting them at like 8 million or something, you know? Not at like 2 million, I don't know. It was definitely not good PR after it was starting to sink. It was continuously sinking. I don't know.
The next expansion, Legion, would be announced. The long-lost Broken Isles were discovered, and the Orc Warlock Gul'dan unleashed a second Burning Crusade upon Azeroth. It would feature a new class, the Demon Hunter, among many supporting systems such as powerful and unique artifact weapons.
Now, I don't care if you guys like this expansion or not, but this expansion, and I don't like a lot of aspects of it, but it was a very creative and actually like meaningful expansion that added some things to the game, that tried out things. Even if some things didn't work out, it was fine. Like I don't like a lot of things in Legion. I didn't like how much we had to farm stuff. I think it was like crazy. The amount of effort you need to put in, the amount of grind you had to do. I think it was mental. Just like the islands later on, but it actually put some stuff into the game, which was actually interesting. And even though it personally, like I didn't, you know, enjoy some aspects of it, I still am fully fine with them doing this. Fuck it. You know what? Like this is actually something. Like, I'm okay with them trying out stuff, you know? And they did try out some really cool stuff here. I actually don't know how or why. Like, I would say Legion was a really good expansion that, you know, I personally just got a bit fucked on. But actually, like, unexpected. If they did this now, I would be quite surprised, you know? Such a revolutionary expansion, I think. It changed the game. Legion was good raid-wise. Bro, every expansion is good raid-wise. Raids are always good. That's the thing. At this point, I'm thinking it's probably just quite easy to make raids good. Like, because I never see them fail in terms of like the fights being fun. honestly, I can't imagine them being just too hard to make. I don't know. Which is weird, because why don't they make more then? I don't know. Maybe they are hard. I don't know.
That players could obtain and level up as an additional form of character progression. Each class would have a story-driven Order Hall campaign questline. A new legendary system would be added. Players had a small chance to obtain powerful legendary items to further enhance their characters.
Some families coming
daily
over,
quest
basically.
hubs
And
would be replaced with world
my attention
quests,
is needed.
offering a greater variety in daily
That's fine.
activities. Quest hubs would be
I mean,
replaced
we know this.
with world quests.
Oh,
offering
I mean, world quests. Bro, this is the only thing that was a bit milked too much in this expansion. I think world quest was good idea, great idea. In fact, the problem was the amount of them that you had to do. Wait, actually, it was on BFA that it went really mental on. Oh no, this one as well. The AP swoops. Oh no, that was the one thing I'm not down with. That was the one thing. That was the one thing I don't accept. Like, you're already doing like crazy mental amount of M+ to get AP, and M+ is kind of fun already. If they had just reduced the AP you get from world quests, so that it is not worth doing them over doing the hardest content in the game, which in my eyes makes sense. Like, you shouldn't go and pick 7 flowers, turn them in, and get more efficient artifact power than if you defeat some like the hardest bosses in the game. That sounds like so obvious to me. It sounds so obvious to me, but for some reason they think picking 7 flowers, that should be rewarded. That shit is hard. If nobody picks those flowers, how are the NPCs gonna be happy? Huh? And the thing is, it's not like this shit like revolutionized. Like, this is not the part of the expansion that was like game changing. Like, you know, this all tied in with the whole system, and it just had to be there. Like, several people, like they you know, this was bread and butter for them. This was the content, like the shit, you know. Like, no, nobody wanted this.
Greater variety in daily activities, which had become standard for several years, and the Mythic Plus system, an infinitely scaling timed challenge mode to bring dungeons back once more as a focus of endgame content.
Milking gamers' game time. That's the thing I'm saying, man. It's fine, milk my time, but they were milking it with work quests. We were already grinding M+ non-stop. You just had to go do work quests as well every day for an hour, so that you can get the most efficient AP, because you were min-maxing your gameplay time. It was, you know, 1 hour of work questing meant 1.5 hours of M+. So you were like, obviously I'm going to do work quests, you know? No brainer. Even though M+ was way more fun. Doesn't matter.
After the Warlords of Draenor, the confidence of the players was at an all-time low, and many would hope that Legion would be the expansion to redeem it. Although subscription numbers were no longer being reported, it had tied the release day sales records set by Cataclysm several years prior, selling a total of 3.3 million copies.
I'm going to try to speed it up and try to finish the video.
Quarterly investor reports would also provide promising data on the overall reception of the Legion expansion,
God,
suggesting higher playtime per player. Mostly due to the success of its major features, the expansion as a whole proved to be a much-needed recovery. The Order Halls, being public locations that players shared, served as a base of operations, and unlike the previous
Order Halls was a good idea.
Didn't harm its own social aspect. World quests, compared to the old daily hubs, offered much-needed variety in players' daily activities, and Mythic Plus saw high activity as players enjoyed the timed, ever-increasing challenge that they provided. Most of its features were received well, and with a solid rating scene to support it, it's generally looked back at favorably by even the most embittered fans, with its criticisms primarily being drawn from its reward structure. The legendaries, due to their low drop chance and high impact on gameplay, would be a source of frustration, so much so that they would receive a rehaul late into the expansion, where players could purchase specific pieces with a new currency.
The legendaries, I don't know if you guys were there, they were bugged. If you got one legendary, the chance of you getting a second legendary was higher. And if you got the second legendary, then it was higher to get a third one. And, you know, for the first like 2 weeks or something. So if you didn't get it, like, and the first legendary was super rare. So if you didn't get a legendary, you were fucked. If you got one, you were getting fucking everything. And it was also a random bug, a random drop of the legendary. So if you like, you could get like a completely useless legendary, or you could maybe even not get any at all. And they lied about it. I mean, I don't know if they lied about it. Didn't they say like there is no bug, but then there was a bug? No, they didn't actually accept it. True, they did not accept it. And then people like proved it. Like there's the odds are just not possible. Like this is not a thing. Like there's no way that this guy was so lucky that he got like so many legendaries. Meanwhile, this person who did the same things didn't get any.
And similarly, the forging system
True, they also lied about the soft cap.
Of luck by holding too much power in character progression. At this point, it was called Titan Forging, which had a much larger eye level range compared to the more tame Thunder Forge.
I'm still fine with it, man, because they were actually trying to do something new. They were trying to do something cool. Because that's a bug, right? It's clearly a bug, even though they don't accept that it's a bug or whatever. But it was a bug. It got fixed, so they knew about it, I guess. So lying is kind of weird, but weird champ. But at least they were trying something interesting.
First introduced in Pandora, items could roll up to 60 eye levels higher than that of their base, which made it possible to obtain mythic rating quality gear from even the most mundane activities. World of Warcraft and MMOs in general already have a high amount of type progression, but this added layer of needing the right piece to drop, and for that piece to Titan Forge, shifted the reward structure further from time investment to blind luck, and combined with the legendary system, many players would liken the expansion to a slot machine. Though overall, Legion would be received.
I'll never forget the LFR trinket from the last boss in the expansion that dropped in the mythic eye level, like for a guy, and we were just like looking at it and like going like, what the fuck is this, man?
Quite well. It was met with troubling news from within. Senior Vice President of Story and Franchise Development, Chris Metzen, who had been with the company for 23 years at that point, had announced his retirement, citing burnout, panic attacks, and the desire to spend more time with his family as the primary reasons for the decision. What a casual. Having been one of the most public-facing figures and the primary visionary for the World of Warcraft and the characters who inhabited it, it was seen as a tremendous loss, with fans and co-workers alike commenting on his influence.
He made
on
his own company, which takes like way more time than working in a company.
Community had also been thriving, and in 2016, it was larger than it had ever been at that point, with most congregating to a server named Nostalrius.
Good lord, so many goddamn people. This is literally, the server's been up for about 10 minutes and people are just entering, and this is the scene.
The server had been hosting over 130,000 active players worldwide, an impressive feat for a game that users had to seek out on their own. Their success proved thousands of active players worldwide, an impressive feat for a game that users
goddamn people.
Over 130,000 active players worldwide, an impressive feat for a game that users had to seek out on their own. Their success proved to be their downfall, however, as in April of 2016, Blizzard had sent cease and desist letters for those responsible for running the server, threatening legal action if they refused to shut it down.
I personally had a private investigator hired to track me down by a legal firm that represents Blizzard. He called numerous people in my life, including my employer, my owner of my company, to confirm information about me so he could serve me papers at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night, slamming and knocking on the door, freaking the crap out of my wife, and waking up my baby daughter in the next room.
They would comply shortly after, as tens of thousands of players logged in one last time to say farewell to the community that they had built. The shutdown, although completely within Blizzard's rights legally, naturally sparked outrage among the private server community. A petition was created for an officially developed Blizzard Legacy server, and it would reach nearly 300,000 signatures in the span of 2 weeks. And although it didn't provide immediate results, much like the infamous "you think you do but you don't" quote, it would prove to be a critical moment in Classic's history. The next expansion would be revealed at Blizzcon 2017, and players learned of the battle for Azeroth. Having thwarted the Second Burn Crusade, the Horde and Alliance now turned their attention on each other and would stage an all-out war over a new resource called Azerite. This resource would serve as a way to empower a new amulet, the level of which would unlock traits in accompanying armor pieces. The system had been set up similarly to the previously successful artifact system, and advertised increased customization and player agency, allowing them to tailor their characters to suit their gameplay style.
The stupid thing is, all of these systems are actually they're not that bad. I mean, it's at least Azerite power. I don't think it's that bad if it was implemented in a good way. I think Azerite power could have been pretty good. Sorry, not Azerite, artifact power in this case, but I mean, it's the same principle.
You might find a power that makes you think twice about using a talent that you've previously written off, and you will certainly find combinations that reinforce your favorite way to play your character.
One of the main methods of obtaining this resource were through island expeditions, where a team of 3 players could fight against another team of players or AI for Azerite, found randomly throughout the island, with random enemy selection, placement, and quests serving as the primary means of attempting to add replayability and longevity to them.
It's something that we're calling dynamic replayability. Every time you come to this space, the puzzle is different. The creatures are in different locations. There are additional gameplay elements scattered throughout the world, and it's always a little bit different.
Warfronts were a new feature, which were reminiscent of the original strategy games that the MMO was based off of. In here, you would battle for resources, and construct and upgrade buildings, and fend off troops with the ultimate goal of defeating the enemy commander. These wouldn't be the only announcements the world of...
Again, Warfronts, I mean, even though it was a full failure, unlike, some of the other stuff that was made in Legion, or M+, I think WarQuest even could have had their place in WoW. Warfronts, even though it was complete shit, honestly, I didn't mind it that much. Like, at least they tried something. I mean, honestly, I'm not super mad at it. Now, letting it drop, like, you know, raid loot and forcing you to play it. Maybe they should have done it once, and then when they say it doesn't really work out, they could have stopped. You know, that's what I would have preferred. And then about the islands, I mean, come on, dude. Like that's shit. That's just crazy. It doesn't make any sense in my head. Like why they made that. I just don't understand it. For those of you that don't know, so it was a resource that you had to collect, and you could, again, the best way to collect it was World Quest, and then it was in Plus, and so that's basically the same thing as Legion. But then there was a third way, which was better in terms of, which you could do non-stop, so kind of like M+. The way it goes was you did your World Quest, which was a finite resource per day, and then there was an infinite resource, which was the M+ in Legion. But in BFA, they added islands, which was also an infinite resource. It didn't drop loot, but it dropped Azeroth power. And it dropped more than M+. So now, instead of doing M+, which was really fun. It was really fun. I mean, it's one of the biggest things nowadays in WoW. They instead said, no, you should go islands. Because you needed Azeroth power. You got all your gear in, like, you know, a couple weeks, maybe a month or two from M+ that you could get. And then it was the only thing you were left with was islands. And you could do them forever, honestly. Like, there was no cap. You could just, you just farmed and farmed and farmed, and it became less and less worth it. But then every week, it became more worth it. And then when you farmed more, it became less worth it. But technically, you could just play forever, and it would be an increase. And what we did was we played forever. And, you know, we played the same thing. Like, I think we had to do it per tier, like, roughly 1,000 times minimum. I think the good players went more to, like, 1,500 times clearing the same thing. It was like, in my opinion, by far the darkest times for raid prep. Like, way worse than anything before. Anything. It was not even close. On Nyalotha, like on the previous years, I didn't do that many hours. I did like maybe 600, 800. On Nyalotha, I did like 1,000. And after that, boys, your brain just turns into mush. Like, and I'm not saying like you're sitting there like a zombie or something. I got like a speech impediment. I couldn't speak anymore. And not like in a way where I would stutter. Like I would think left, but I would say right. I would just not be able to speak properly. This is like mental.
Ice cream. Ice cream is great. Ice cream is one of my favorite desserts. Personally, I love chocolate, and I love cookies and cream. Cookies and cream is actually my all-time favorite dessert. But I understand that for some of you, your favorite flavor is vanilla.
Though for years they had claimed a re-release of previous versions of the game wasn't possible, World of Warcraft Classic would be unveiled, combining the updated Legion client with old data discovered on a backup of a backup held onto by an ex-employee. A small team dedicated their efforts in providing a home for the ever-growing population of vanilla fans in place of the one that they had not so long ago taken away. Details of development would follow shortly after, with the philosophy of changing as little of the game as possible in an effort to most accurately...
They got the version of the game from an ex-employee because he had some sort of backups from the source files.
Recreate the experience as it was from 2004
That's pretty
to
cool, honestly.
Including a phasing schedule to match roughly the original release schedule, and as requested by the player base, the absence of many features such as the Dungeon Finder, looking for raid mode, and the endgame cash shop, to name just a few. Combined with Legion's recent success, the outlook of the game was looking more promising than ever before. The Battle for Azeroth soon saw its release in August of 2018, selling 3.4 million copies on its first day, breaking the record initially set by Cataclysm in 2010. However, when the honeymoon phase ended, the faults of the expansion started to become clear. The Azerite armor system, which was said to hold major traits that altered how classes played, instead were a series of incidental procs that rarely did anything other than increase damage done, healing throughput, and damage mitigation, with some being just base stat increases.
You might find a power that makes you think twice about using a talent that you'd previously written off, and you will certainly find combinations that reinforce your favorite way to play your character.
Not at all as gameplay altering as advertised. And despite BFA being centered around a faction war, Warfronts were exclusively a PvE game mode that were also nearly impossible to lose, with the only recorded losses resulting from the entire team waiting within the base until they were overwhelmed.
Wow, I'm screenshotting this.
Due to this extreme lack of challenge, they were seen to be more of a chore than anything else. And as random expeditions, players saw little replayability in the randomized selection of enemies, and behind the bells and whistles was a simple and repetitive truth. Rush to get the required amount of Azerite before the enemy team does, and as a result, the game mode would become very repetitive very quickly. Story would also come under heavy criticism. The whole expansion would have a heavy focus on Sylvanas Windrunner, the leader of the Forsaken of the Horde, and throughout BFA's 2-year run, she would face many major lore characters, and even entire armies, outwitting them at every turn or dispatching them with ease in combat. The decisions she made often came with no reasonable explanation or logic, leaving the player base in the dark for the entirety of the expansion, and many would liken her to a Mary Sue, a fiction archetype who is inexplicably free of any and all weakness. Such traits are also common through self-inserts, which there was also evidence of, as a writer for Blizzard would roleplay as a major character, Nathanos Blakecaller, on Twitter. The narrative structure remained ambiguous throughout the entirety of the expansion, with most criticism being made towards the ending. As was custom with the final boss of an expansion since the Wrath of the Lich King, players were treated with a finale cutscene. They would typically run a few minutes, and were fully voice-acted animation presentations.
Is it over? At long last. No king rules forever, my son.
Though for the battle for Azeroth, the old god N'Zoth would be the finale, with years of anticipation building up as his existence was referenced several times up to the final patch of the expansion, and where players expected a similar voice-acted dialogue between the major lore characters and their thoughts on defeating a god, they were instead met with the same footage I just droned over in a monotone manner. The feedback was immediate and clear, and shortly after its premiere, the video would be unlisted as Blizzard tried to hide the blundered finish to a blunder of an expansion.
Come on, guys, let's go play video games. Hooray!
The initial wave
the fight was pretty bad as well. It wasn't like, I don't know how. It's like almost they're trying to like fuck it up, because there were better fights in that tier that were not the end boss. It's like, I don't know why. It was a really bad fight. Like, it was probably one of the worst. Probably the worst. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking like that because we lost. I don't know. But it felt really bad. I'm thinking the previous end fights, Jaden felt also a bit broken, but it didn't feel as bad as N'Zoth, I think. Yeah, I mean, THD won War First, and usually when you win War First, you think like the fight is good. You had fun. So THD says it's bad, even though he had War First. So something is wrong. Yeah. Doesn't fit.
Quickly soured, as all 3 major systems of the expansion fell short of their goals.
I skipped the cinematics, so I don't know about that.
Though players would have to wait nearly a year following their initial release. In response, monthly active users would start taking a dive, and in an attempt to bolster engagement metrics, the expansion would aim to rely on what many described to be an excessive amount of activities designed around daily and weekly timers. By the end of the expansion's lifespan, this would be the full list. Many would comment that the entire game at this point had devolved into a list of chores that she had a limited amount of time to complete, aimed to keep players in a gerbil-like routine of going down a checklist for their daily session. Instead of feeling rewarded for their playtime and dedication, many would feel punished for missing sessions and question their reasons for playing to begin with. And just 2 months after release, Blizzard would suffer another devastating departure as co-founder Mike Morhaime announced that he was stepping down as company president, promoting then executive producer J. Allen Brack to take his place. More troubling still, these people weren't quitting game development, they were quitting Blizzard. Later, in 2020, Morhaime would announce a new company, Dreamhaven, and under its umbrella were 2 studios, Moonshot Games and Secret Door, of which many former members of Blizzard would be employed. In its announcement, they would stress that the goal of the company would be to prioritize product quality and player experience over short-term financial pressures, a development mindset that many fans say Activision Blizzard had abandoned long ago. Chris Metzen would later found Warchief Gaming, which is dedicated to developing worlds and tabletop experiences, and outside of World of Warcraft, the former Hearthstone director Ben Brode would launch the game studio Second Dinner. Ex-StarCraft II developers would join Frost Giant and work towards developing a new RTS, and Lightforge game was opened by former Blizzard engineer Matt Shimbari and would later partner with Dreamhaven. Morhaime would be just one of many longtime talent leaving the company in recent years, and his departure would be instrumental in what would later be known as brain drain afflicting the developer. Slowly but surely, the people who made Blizzard what they were departing. This rash of departures would be downplayed as ordinary for the world of game development, in that the games were more about the team rather than individual members. But internally, employees shared a different story. Rather that these people were irreplaceable mentors, that they drew inspiration from each other, and that each departure would be accompanied by a negative cascading effect to those left behind. And just months later, another co-founder, Frank Pierce, would be the next to announce his departure, leaving just Alan Adam as the last co-founder standing. Development with Classic was progressing steadily, and a release date for the summer of 2019 was announced. A new game within the Warcraft franchise was also revealed. Warcraft 3 Reforged would advertise fully remodeled characters and animations, as well as retuned maps and campaigns in this modern-day remaster, with a set release year of 2019. This would later be delayed to January 2020 in an official post, citing delays in development and the desire to retain a high-quality standard that the player base held them to. Though not pertaining to the World of Warcraft directly, but would transpire with the development of Warcraft 3 and other titles, revealed the priorities and development practices of Blizzard as a whole, and set the standard of how they would treat their community across all franchises.
Shit. Wait, 0.6 out of what? 5? Wait, no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think I counted wrong, but I think it's 10. That's not good, boys. That's not good.
Blizzard as a whole, and set the standard of how they would treat their community across all franchises, World of Warcraft included. This was also the Blizzcon where they announced a mobile Diablo game. Which
Imagine rating a game, and you're like, oh, is it a 0 or a 1? Yeah, 0.
With a less than desirable reception.
Did you guys want have phones? Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
Well, that's a story for another time. To make
Why would you announce Diablo Immortal in front like a mobile phone instead of like people that are like 30 years old? They're old school gamers, man. How can you be so out of touch with your audience? You can't do that. So dumb. Like I would say I'm a pretty hardcore gamer. I don't have a single game on my phone. I only have chess, actually. That's it. And I installed that like a couple months ago. And I'm probably one of the younger audiences that Blizzard has.
Matters worse, the following years, although financially successful, would prove to be the most damaging to their reputation. Though reaching historic revenue earnings, treatment of their employees would become the focus of negative press. In February of 2019, 800 employees would be fired, many without warning, and were left crying.
I guess I'm about the middle,
I think. Continue through the following years of record-breaking profits, with massive layoffs and multi-million-dollar CEO bonuses following shortly after. In one instance, employees would be given gift cards to the games that they just got fired from working on their way out. Hey, here's some Overwatch skins. You're fired, by the way. And in other cases, the amount of people fired would be underreported. Combined with the poor reception of the battle for Azeroth, the reputation had quickly started to sour from that of a community-first industry innovator to one operated on greed, predatory business practices, and the cold treatment of their employees and even their player base. Little did everyone know, though, the worst was yet to come. Since 2008, they had hosted an esports event called the Arena World Championship,
I totally forgot about this.
Where high-end competitive players would face off in a tournament-style competition of the game's arena mode for cash prizes, ranging from $120,000 since its inception in 2008 to $280,000 in 2018. For 2019, however, they had announced a special campaign where players would be able to contribute to the ever-growing prize pool. 2 new toys, the Transmorpher Beacon and some faction-themed fireworks, were made to be available in the in-game cash shop, and to encourage sales, 25% of the proceeds would contribute towards the prize pool of both the Arena World Championship and also the Mythic Dungeon International, stating that the support of the players would help take the WoW esports scene to the next level. They also assured that a minimum prize pool of $500,000 would be offered, split up evenly between the 2 events. Considering that all announcements used verbiage such as help or contribute, the player base had assumed that this $500,000 prize pool would be funded by Blizzard as they had done for a decade prior, and that the proceeds of the toy sales would, well, contribute to the total, as stated. After the campaign had concluded, though, fans were dismayed to learn that they didn't help nor contribute, as Blizzard pocketed what they would usually put up and put the responsibility on funding the entirety of the prize pool on the player base, as confirmed by an AWC participant, Snuts.
So let's rephrase this. So people gave Blizzard so much money, Blizzard decided to give themselves even more.
Right. So they collected around $2.6 million, give or take, and instead of adding prize money for themselves, they just pocketed $2 million. And
why are they even only giving 25%? It's a pet. How hard could it have been to design this pet? Let's go fully incredible. Like they got like some really high-end designers. They got like some crazy people to work on this project of this pet. They spent $50K for these 2 pets. They made $2.6 million from 2 pets. First of all, why are they only giving 25%?
decided to just use the money that the community gave us and pay for their tournament.
I had forgotten about this. I knew there was some. I still remember there was some drama about the prize pool. I didn't know how exactly it was. Maybe I didn't even know that it was like this 2.6 million actually.
Both competitors and viewers expressed their anger, stating that they had felt deceived and that the good nature of those wishing to support the esports community of Blizzard were taken advantage of. Blizzard deceived and that the good nature of those
I guess they tried to keep it secret, yeah? Like they thought if it doesn't come out, nobody's gonna realize. And also I think what they may have feared is that people will realize how much money they're making off of these pets. which is stupid. I don't even know why they offered 25%. Like, they could have said, we're going to give 100% of it, and then just lie about it, about how much they give. Like, I would have understood that, but why are you saying you're giving 25% of this pet? Why do you deserve 75? Like, I don't even understand it. And on top, you're going to make your numbers public, obviously, by saying you're going to give 25%. So, and they clearly don't want to do that because they're making too much money for what they are worth.
Wishing to support the esports community of Blizzard were taken advantage of. Blizzard would never acknowledge the controversy, and prize pools were funded solely by the crowdfunding campaign, and despite the self-proclaimed success in raising the funds, crowdfunding such as this would not be repeated for future tournaments, presumably due to the intense backlash that they received.
And they didn't give the 500k in the end, right? Like, they just kept it like that, even though it came out. They didn't change anything, right? That's ballsy, man.
World of Warcraft wasn't their only franchise that would be at the center of controversy, as soon after their Hearthstone division would attract the attention of national media.
Here's a story which just won't go away. Activision Blizzard. It has suspended a gamer and taken his prize money away because he made comments supporting Hong Kong protesters.
The protests in Hong Kong were at their climax at this point. Having been a British colony until 1997, when sovereignty of the territory was returned to China, Hong Kong would retain a separate legal and economic system with basic human rights safeguarded, in contrast to other cities in China, which are heavily governed by the authoritarian central government. Though in March of 2019, a bill would be proposed that would allow extraditions of fugitives to mainland China, which infringed on these rare freedoms, and due to China's opaque legal system, would allow the prosecution of citizens for political purposes. Citizens held marches and protest, which quickly turned violent after they were fired upon with tear gas, rubber bullets, pepper spray, and even live rounds as the situation spiraled out of control. In October of the same year, a tournament competitor, Jung Naiwan, or Blitzchung, after a victory took out a face mask similar to those being worn by the Hong Kong protesters and voiced his support to them, quoted, "Liberate Hong Kong, the revolution of our times." The feed was quickly cut, and the following day, Blizzard announced that Blitzchung had been banned from competing further in the tournament, in addition to revoking the prize money that he had won up until that point, totaling $10,000. Additionally, he would be banned from competing for a full year, and the two casters interviewing Blitzchung at the time would also be fired. As a result, Activision Blizzard would swiftly come under heavy criticism, as many saw morality cast aside for vested financial interests. Players of another team, American University, would add their voices to the protest, which was also quickly censored and condemned by Blizzard.
Spirits. And that is game WPI with the win. The winners.
Similar to Blitzchung, they would also be banned from competing in future tournaments, this time for 6 months. Shortly after, then-President J. Allen Brack released a statement saying that the penalties were not appropriate and that Blitzchung's winnings would be reinstated to him and that his ban would be reduced to 6 months down from 12, and also state that their business dealings with China had no influence on the initial penalties. Brack would...
I mean, I'm not even sure. Like, he should obviously get the money, but I do understand if they want to punish somebody for saying political things on a game stream, right? People are not there to listen to that shit, right? Like, even if he's right, it doesn't really matter. I understand that. I think the second thing, what they reverted to, I think that's fine. But why would you take the prize money? Like, so stupid. Save money, 10k. Come on. I mean, every 6 months there is only one tournament, I think. So he is banned from the next AWC, I guess, right? If this was AWC, I guess. Or was it another game? I don't know. I understand it. I'm not saying it's like necessarily good or bad, I guess, but it's okay. But yeah, like I wouldn't judge them too much on the second thing. But the first thing is just stupid, yeah.
Open up the following BlizzCon with an apology to the
like why
mishandling of
they
the
turned it
situation,
into drama,
given that
but
their
it didn't even
actions
have
would
to
speak louder
be.
than words.
But our actions are going to matter more than any of these words.
A phrase that the Blizzard community would quickly become very familiar with. In the same BlizzCon, the new expansion for World of Warcraft would also be revealed. Players would enter the Shadowlands and join factions called Covenants. Similar to the Order Halls in Legion, these would serve as a base of operations for players to conduct their campaign, and also gain unique abilities and perks. They would also explore the Tower of Torghast, a randomized 1 to 3 player dungeon crawl with powerful affixes to power up their characters, and upon completion, gain the ability to craft legendary armor pieces, similar in function to those of the Legion expansion, though following the poor reception of the Battle for Azeroth, many more would look at the reveal through a more critical lens. Though their current projects were met with mixed reactions, World of Warcraft Classic had seen its release in August of 2019 to surprising success. Initially holding only a handful of servers, it was quickly overwhelmed, and new servers were created to hold the surprising amount of people that had longed for the Azeroth of years long past. Upon launch, interest was so underestimated that queue times would balloon up to several hours, and even months following the release for some of the highest population servers. Some aspects of the game would age well, such as a renewed sense of community and a heavy focus on traditional RPG elements, and other aspects, such as a solid and archaic raiding scene and an eventual stagnation of content, would remain to be problem areas within the game, as well as botting. As the game grew in popularity, so too did third-party websites offering in-game items or services in exchange for real money, a practice that's against the game's terms of service. These sites oftentimes use automated programs to obtain this currency, and Blizzard would be ineffective in controlling them throughout the duration.
Is it really that hard to ban bots? I genuinely think they must think it's good for the game that bots exist. And I don't think the factor is like, I don't think it's a factor that they are making them money because they're paying subscription to 13 euros per month. Or they just are bad at their job. Like those two things. I don't think they're like, yeah, let's make more money by using the botters' subscription money.
Duration of Classic, even though they were relatively easy to spot by the players, as displayed many times by content creators within the community.
I found a warrior mob grinding in Nostalrius having a bit of trouble getting to his target.
Cheating had always been, and continues to be, an area where Blizzard would perform poorly, even in the current version of the game, but due to the more fragile nature of the economy in World of Warcraft Classic and its community, it would have greater negative consequences. Though cheating was to remain a problem area, due to its traditional design and the absence of what many now deemed to be an overly intrusive cash shop, it proved to hold the attention of a wide player base consistently through its year-and-a-half run, though not every re-release was to be met with the same success. Warcraft III Reforged saw its release in the following January. Though delayed, as they ensured to maintain a high-quality standard, it was universally met with negative reviews, as players saw little polish with the remaster, citing a poor UI, copious bugs, a low frame rate, missing features from the original, and consistent crashes. The latter of these issues would take the spotlight in the competitive scene shortly after. In their very first major tournament, in a quarterfinal match between two top players, Moon and Thorzane, a crash occurred at a key moment.
Imagine making a game that's like remaking a game and making it worse. That's kind of an achievement for itself. They should give themselves an achievement for that, dude.
The score was 1-1, and Thorzane seemed to be on track to take the win, but suffered a disconnect mid-match.
Thorzane smells blood in the water. He's going in for the kill here. We have Banish ready. Mountain King was a little hurt. This is all buying time for the towers. We have no Breath of Fire, by the way. It is Drunken Haze, so big mischance on these Dragonhawks, and a disconnect. That fight was the most important one in this game yet.
The match would then be restarted, despite Thorzane's advantage, and he would once again retake control of the rematch, and once again suffered a disconnect.
I think he already has enough mana. I don't need a Blood Mage. I don't need you. You're benched.
Oh my god.
Once this... It looks like another drop just happened. Oh wow. As Thorzane, I kind of like his position here in this game. Again, yeah.
Just happens.
So frustrating.
The match would be replayed for a third time, and Moon, having adapted to Thorzane's strategy at this point, was the one to take the lead and eliminated Thorzane, resulting in the forfeiture of the large prize pool he surely would have won twice, though they are the most impactful as they happened during a quarterfinal match.
Bro, and then he comes... Oh man, that was the saddest thing in this video I've seen. Wait.
This would not be the only he surely would have won twice.
This is the guy that lost now, right? In the end. That could have won twice. Imagine being so hard-fucked by Blizzard. And then he's like, man, it is what it is, I guess. And then he stands up, goes to this guy, he shakes the hand and goes away, man. Now, that I could cry seeing that. That's actually disgusting. It is a child move. I'm not flaming him. It's just very sad.
Though they are the most impactful as they happened during a quarterfinal match, these would not be the only disconnects to occur in the tournament.
What a fucking legend.
In lower level brackets would also become victim to random drops at key
I would
moments.
smash the PC
Years later,
probably.
an internal investigation would reveal that they knowingly released the game in an unfinished state, unwilling to delay it for a second time in fear of losing the pre-orders they had already amassed. It was also noted that the entire project was hamstrung by a low budget due to its low potential for being a big earner for the company. Internal sources would also share their struggles with exhaustion, anxiety, and depression for more than a year, and that their warnings of the game's unfinished state being largely ignored in order to make the tight release schedule. Negative reviews continued at a steady pace, as did refunds, as players were less than impressed at the level of polish that they received compared to what was promised. The classic game teams would be shut down, a new team now in their place, and in a bit of irony in a Bloomberg interview, a Blizzard spokesperson repeated the same failed promise made by Brack a few months prior, that their work and actions would speak louder than words. A delay was also announced with Shadowlands, this time from October to December, once more citing that extra polish is needed before a release would be made, and despite the struggles with the Battle for Azeroth, Blizzard proved, as they have many times, that selling copies wasn't the problem, as Shadowlands sold an impressive 3.7 million copies on launch day alone. Much like its predecessor though, not long after the initial launch, the expansion's major features would be the focus of criticism. The Tower of Torghast, or Chorghast as players soon likened it to, suffered the same fate as island expeditions from the Battle for Azeroth, and quickly became repetitive, as with most systems that reset on a weekly timer. As for the expansion's high levels,
Torghast from PTR was
an
so
ability
much
to mount, it was seen to be unnecessarily frustrating to navigate and formulate to other such zones released in the past.
So sad.
By now, players were noticing a pattern of high-level zones
How they can
with new
just take a
reputations
game
and
and just
excessive daily
fucking
timers
ruin
such
it.
as quests, rare elite enemies, and treasure chests. As for Covenant, they received a mixed reaction, with some praising the unique abilities and aesthetics obtained from choosing a specific faction, and others condemning them for being unbalanced, thus burdening them with regret if they had made a poor choice.
Some people's classes, 40% of their damage is just their Covenant ability. They're all over the place. They're a mess.
Some would also take issue with being locked out of a large amount of content offered from the other Covenants, as choosing one meant excluding 3 others, though a time-gated quest was available should they feel the need to switch. For better or for worse, Blizzard would stand down at launch, also stated that they had the ability to pull the ripcord, which they would comply to nearly a year later in patch 9.1.5. As for the story, many would see it as even worse than that of the Battle for Azeroth expansion. The plot somehow became even more confusing and contradictory, requiring external literature to follow along, as even YouTube channels dedicated to the lore of the game had difficulty piecing together the disorienting storylines. They would not be shy in expressing their frustration.
How many books are you gonna fucking get out of me? How much money am I gonna pay before I can finally explain the lore to the people that want to know about it to the degree that it's actually comprehensible?
I will never serve.
Major cutscenes would continue to be unlisted on their YouTube channel in response to the negative reception. Only time will tell of the fate of the Shadowlands, if it'll go down as a good or a bad expansion, but players are quick to note the similarities between it and the Battle for Azeroth, where the major systems are released in a poorly implemented state, only to be addressed in patches several months later, and many at this point would take notice to a rising contender within the MMO genre. Over the years, Final Fantasy XIV would slowly but surely gain a sizable subscriber base. Following a failed initial launch in 2010, after listening to player feedback, the MMO was remade in many ways and relaunched in 2013. It would see steady growth due to these improvements, and also the shortcomings of the World of Warcraft. And as players became increasingly embittered with Shadowlands, they started migrating over, including major streamers and YouTube channels, creating more tension within the already tribalistic MMO community, as players, content creators, and even employees would take shots at each other over social media. Though subscriptions remained to be hidden, third-party analytics began favoring Final Fantasy XIV to be the most active MMO, with Blizzard even sending out surveys attempting to gauge interest in it. For the first time in many years, it was becoming clear to many that the World of Warcraft was losing its hold on the genre.
It's treason, then.
At BlizzCon 2020, the next step for Classic was announced, and as many expected, players would begin their second journey into the Outland in the Burning Crusade Classic. Much like the base game, the first expansion would be recreated closely to its original run in 2007, but with one exception, the addition of a major cash-up element, the character boost.
We are going to offer a level 58 boost for purchase, but it does come with some restrictions, so it's going to be 1 per account. It's not going to be usable on Blood Elf or Draenor. It'll have some...
For many players, the feeling of anticipation was quickly replaced by that of betrayal, as character boosts, among other paid services such as the WoW token, were specifically stated not to be released in the classic version of the game, as they didn't exist back then. Ultimately, the character boost would be a one-use service, bringing any character to level 58, and was offered in a bundled package that also included other digital rewards, including a mount, a pet, and a toy. Ignoring the fact that they had lied, Blizzard would pitch that it was intended for new players who didn't have the time to level.
There's a lot of my friends, for example, who maybe didn't really play Classic when it first came out, right? And so now they're behind, and they're interested in playing the Burning Crusade. We want to make sure that those people are served too. And one of the ways we could do that is provide a boost to people who are interested in coming back.
Though this was contradicted in the fact that the service was purchasable by everyone, even by those who already had high-level characters. In addition to the boost, Blizzard had also announced Classic-era servers for those who preferred the vanilla state of the game, but this too would be met with controversy, as there would be a $35 charge in transferring characters to both states of the games, as characters that players spent the past year and a half leveling and gearing would be dangled in front of their faces in the login screen behind the paywall. The outrage was immediate, and Blizzard would respond by lowering the charge to $15, down from $35. As for the boost, the community was quick to point out the dangers of releasing such a service, such as the abandonment of the old world, and how bots, which had already been a major problem in Classic, would become empowered with the ability to skip towards the endgame, making them capable of farming higher-level materials almost immediately, thus having a greater negative effect than they previously had. Many also warned that accepting a service as major as this would lead Classic down the same familiar road, and that it would suffer the same fate of the game that spawned its existence to begin with, in addition to creating an unfair, paid element that let players pay to skip what other players had already worked for. Though these worries would ultimately be ignored, and the level boost was released despite the backlash. Footage of boosted characters botting started to appear immediately.
Literally every single bot, without fail, was a level 58 boosted character. The limitation of 1 per account for bots is completely irrelevant. As expected for them, it's just a huge time save from actually having to level.
And many saw an old world now abandoned, as the boost now loaded the majority of the player base directly into the Outland. One of the core design philosophies of Classic had been betrayed. A large portion of the player base at this point were refugees from current World of Warcraft, due to in large part of the overzealous cash shop, which was promised to be absent in the recreation. Shortly after, a WoW token with the green Burning Crusade background was data mined, and players took to the forums, creating numerous threads asking for confirmation whether this was planned to be released in Classic, and once more, were simply ignored. Still to this day, several months later, there's no confirmation, yes or no, of their plans to implement it into the game. This betrayal proved to be the final straw for many of the player base.
I think that would be the death of Classic.
Not monotone, and physically attractive YouTube user MadSeasonShow, whom after 16 years playing and 7 years on YouTube, had announced his retirement. The heart and soul now ripped away once more, Classic's population began to wane drastically, and the remaining players would comment on the second foray into the Outland, becoming more and more
Yeah, it's pretty
empty
bad
as a
already,
huge
but
passing
that
day.
would be the
Some of those
complete
who
death, I
remained
think.
chose to rebel by targeting other players who had purchased the level boost bundle by performing an in-game emote /spit on anyone seen riding the Deluxe Edition mount. In response, Blizzard disabled the emote when targeting another player.
Right, let's see if we can spit on someone.
Oh, it would spit on everyone who leveled up, or what? Who bought a boost, or how did it work? Who bought mount? Ah, yeah, okay, yeah, I know what this is.
Wow.
Forum threads expressing concern with Classic's future were ultimately ignored, but to a community that acted against their interests, Blizzard's response would be immediate and clear. It was revealed later that Omar Gonzalez, who was one of the few responsible for taking action and making the Classic recreation a reality, had silently taken leave from Blizzard to join Secret Door under Dreamhaven, contributing to the ever-growing list of people who didn't quit
Look
developing
at him
games,
smiling,
but rather
dude. Escaping Bobby's maze. He's so happy. Before all the drama as well, probably.
developing games for Blizzard Entertainment. Not long after, Jeff Kaplan, a 20-year veteran of Blizzard and director of Overwatch, announced his departure. This news would come as a surprise to the community, as the sequel to Overwatch, Overwatch 2, was still in development. Kaplan himself had gained a reputation as a leader and wholly passionate about his craft, so to leave a project before even seeing its release came off as abnormal, and many feared that something was deeply wrong with Blizzard behind closed doors. And prior to this, another industry veteran since its release in 2004, Alex Afrasiabi, would also quietly drop from the company in June of 2020. The manner of which he moved on, however, was also abnormal. As had been customary with the more recognized veterans of the company taking their leave, there was no farewell post, nor even an acknowledgement by Blizzard, though the true reason for his departure would soon become clear.
So-called cube crawls, in which male employees apparently drink a lot of alcohol as they crawl through their way through the cubicles, often engaging in inappropriate behavior toward female employees. The agency is saying it seeks, among other remedies, pay adjustments.
On July 23, 2021, Activision Blizzard once again became the center of national news as the world learned the details of a 2-year investigation and lawsuit by the state of California of continuous sexual misconduct and discrimination of their employees. The investigation alleges that female employees in particular were underpaid and subjected to regular sexual harassment by coworkers and superiors. In the report, it was revealed that one employee ultimately committed suicide during a company vacation. This would occur after pictures of her vagina had allegedly been passed around a company party. The investigation also described cube crawls, where employees would become intoxicated and prowl to the workplace, subjecting coworkers to unwanted sexual advances, lewd behavior, and make inappropriate comments about rape and other intrusive or demeaning behavior.
Crazy, dude. I cannot understand how that can be a thing. No, but how can there be such a culture in so many people?
The Blizzard community, and served as the final straw for many, as players and content creators began to migrate away, favoring other MMOs such as Final Fantasy XIV. Activision Blizzard's response would be swift and attempted to mitigate the allegations, stating that the DFEH, the plaintiff in the lawsuit, had distorted their claims and had rushed to file an inaccurate complaint, and that they were sickened and found the manner of which they investigated and reported to be reprehensible, referring specifically that the employee's suicide had no bearing on the case. The response was quickly deemed tone-deaf by onlookers and employees alike, who staged a walkout in protest of the allegations and the cold response by their employer. Shortly after, Activision CEO Bobby Kotick also denounced the response, stating that it was tone-deaf and that fair and respectful treatment in the workplace was of the utmost importance. Not long after, he would hire a firm made famous for union busting for Amazon to investigate their HR practices. Months later, it was revealed that it was he who had originally drafted the initial response, and having another executive sign it in her name, that is the very same one that he denounced. It was also revealed that he had prior knowledge of several sexual assault cases in the workplace and settling them out of court and failing to make them public. In one instance, he threatened the life of one of his assistants. In response of this news being made public, he would reiterate his commitment to the safety and equality.
Wait, the assistant, was that about sexual harassment as well? I thought that was about something completely else, right? I thought it was about something completely but the threatening on the phone was unrelated to all of this stuff, right? Yeah, I'm just wondering. Like, obviously you shouldn't threaten to kill somebody. That's not a good thing.
In response of this news being made public,
he
would reiterate
bonus.
his commitment
It wasn't
to safety
assistant.
and equality of his employees.
Anyone who doubts my conviction to be the most welcoming and inclusive workplace doesn't really appreciate how important this is to me.
In August, the DFEH accused Activision Blizzard of destroying documents relevant to the investigation in violation of their legal obligation to not tamper with evidence of an ongoing lawsuit, though this claim would be quickly denied.
Dude, he should just join up with Mark Zuckerberg and like create a company together, man.
By an Activision Blizzard spokesperson. Pictures and conversations relating to the Cosby Suite were also leaked, the nickname for Afrasiabi's hotel room from Blizzcon 2013, after the former comedian Bill Cosby, who had at that point faced multiple accusations of date rape. In an internal email, President J. Allen Brack stated his respect and care for equal treatment, and that Gloria Steinem, a well-known activist for women's rights, was a revered name in his household, having failed to grind the reputation to reach exalted, despite being human and having the diplomacy racial. What a casual. The response wasn't received very well for some reason, and shortly after, he would step down as president, ending his near 3-year tenure, and was replaced with a 2-person team, Jen O'Neill and Mike Ybarra, the former of whom would announce her departure just 3 months later, stating in an email to Activision's legal team of her lack of faith of their ability to change, and that she herself faced sexual harassment earlier in her career at Activision. She also revealed that she was being paid less than her co-leader, and that although equal pay was negotiated by both she and Mike Ybarra, it was only offered to her after she announced her resignation. She also described attending a 2007 party with Bobby Kotick, where scantily clad women danced on stripper poles.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go build my own
game dev studio
with blackjack and hookers.
As for Mike Ybarra, he would quickly come under controversy not long after his new position for a tweet advertising selling raid carries for gold. While this isn't against the game's terms of service, it remains to be a controversial point within the World of Warcraft community, as it edges the line of pay to win due to the player's ability to purchase gold with real money. As details of the investigation unfolded, many employees would quit or be fired, including senior game designer Jonathan LeCroix.
I wouldn't flame Mike. I don't think the guy is cool. Honestly, he's just a gamer gaming dude. It's fine, yeah. I don't know.
The lead level designer of Diablo 4, a level designer of World of Warcraft, as well as the inspiration for the Overwatch character, Jesse McCree, and Diablo 4's game director, Luis Barriga, was also revealed to no longer be a part of Blizzard, leaving the upcoming action RPG without 2 critical leaders in the middle of its development. In response to McCree's involvement in the scandal, it was announced that the character McCree would be renamed, and that once again, actions would speak louder than words. Blizzard at this point would also begin a series of in-game changes, such as removing items and references they deemed to be inappropriate given the circumstances, such as changing pictures of women into fruit. In-game joke emotes that were deemed to be highly controversial would also be removed. If there are any children in the room right now, I advise you at this point to cover their ears.
I'd like to fart in the tub.
Amidst the lawsuit, as tensions were at an all-time high,
Wait, what?
I advise you at this point to cover their ears.
I'd like to fart in the tub.
Amidst
They removed that voice line. Why?
the lawsuit, as tensions were at an all-time high, a senior systems designer of World of Warcraft revealed that almost no work is being done as the lawsuit was unfolding. This sparked outrage. Systems designer of World of Warcraft.
I don't know what else I can tell you almost. Being done work on it.
Warcraft revealed that almost no work is being done as the lawsuit was unfolding. This sparked outrage among the player base as they learned that they were paying for content that was no longer being developed in an expansion which had already seen updates at a sluggish pace. In response to the backlash, a senior game producer labeled those complaining as part of the problem, as employees continued lashing out and placing blame on their players and community figures. Blizzard would see a major restructuring of their teams during this time. These employees either quit or were fired, many of which holding important positions in games that were in mid-development, causing major delays in production. In November of 2021, it was revealed by Blizzard Chief Financial Officer Armin Serza that the company isn't planning to include both Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4 in their 2022 financial outlook report, indicating that neither release will see their debut in all of 2022 due to delays in development. As a result, financially, they would suffer their worst loss in 13 years, as stock prices fell by more than 14% in a single day, bringing its year-to-date losses to 25%. In December, employees revealed suspicions that their breast milk was being stolen. Nursing mothers would label and store packages of breast milk in the break room refrigerator, and when retrieving it later, would find that some or all of the milk would be missing, while other items in the refrigerator would remain undisturbed. Though as of this video, no evidence exists of the alleged protein-rich caper. When reached out for comment, an Activision Blizzard spokesperson replied, stating that there's no use crying over spilt milk. Speaking of milking, Blizzard would also increase focus on microtransaction offers, including mounts, pets, and cosmetic outfits, often seen to be vastly superior to those acquirable in-game. Their prices would also be criticized, as their highest package would demand a price tag of $55, nearly matching that of a full AAA release, as onlookers reacted with awe at the lack of awareness or care that Blizzard showed to its community and image. As of this video, the results of the lawsuit are pending, but regardless of the outcome, it'll surely stand out as one of the darkest moments in the company's history, one that's becoming increasingly difficult to break out of, as scrutiny remains to be at an all-time high due to the destroyed trust between they and their community. As a result, a situation has been created where any flinch, positive or negative, is met with dominating pessimism. Employees daily suffer abuse, not only from the outside, but as recently discovered, also from the inside. Today, they stare down the seemingly insurmountable task of repairing the damage caused to their relationship with their community, with each passing day, their environment representing a battlefield, more so than that of a game development studio. While this itself is an unfair situation, many deem it a consequence of casting aside the goodwill of their player base consistently over the course of 3 tumultuous years. In the midst of the scandal, it was announced that Blizzcon was cancelled for the year of 2022, and that it would see a major restructuring if and when it returns. Initially, a heavily community-focused
if and when as well.
For the year of 2022, and that it would see a
major... It didn't say if it or when. Just reimagine. Yeah. No, I don't think people would go to BlizzCon right now. I guess if it's being sold out that fast, like maybe then yeah. I mean, I guess a lot of people don't even know about all of this, right? Like if I wasn't playing WoW anymore, if I was just some old fuck sitting around, maybe I wouldn't hear about this stuff. I would be like, oh, Blizzcon again. Let's go, dude. If Square Enix, I might go actually. Like, I would be much likely to see Yoshi P dance, sing songs. Yeah, I'm down. Fuck it. That'll be more fun.
If and when it returns. Initially a heavily community-focused innovator with franchises that redefined genres, now leaves behind a sullied and controversial legacy in one of the most jarring and unforeseen falls in game development history. Quarterly reports show a consistent downward trend of active users, but at the same time, record-breaking revenue as patience and goodwill are continuously traded away for short-term financial profit. Just as how it breathed life into the genre with its birth in 2004, so too does it with its decline in the modern year, its fall giving rise to a new generation of MMOs eager to claim the crown it once wore with pride and ambition. As players, community figures, and employees depart in record numbers, a particularly iconic phrase of theirs is seen to be more and more prophetic with each passing day. No king rules forever.
We are going to offer a level 58 boost for purchase, but it does come with some restrictions. So it's going to be 1 per account. It's not going to be usable on Blood Elf.
What the fuck?
Hey, boss, now that you're done with your video game, and I don't mean to rush you or nothing, but we got a lot of people waiting to be sentenced to their eternal afterlife.
Send them in.
The state of California is suing video game company Activision Blizzard for sexual harassment and discrimination.
They basically suspended and took away $10,000 and his prize money.
Anyone who doubts my conviction to be the most welcoming and inclusive workplace doesn't really appreciate how important this is to me.
I don't want to look like the scene. I really don't.
We failed in our purpose. And for that, I am sorry. I accept accountability.
And the community is full of a bunch of broken-hearted people who feel alone and are now feeling weird because they're stuck between a weird spot of supporting the company that makes the game and not wanting to support these weird fucking ass grabbers.
Interestingly, the board of directors of Activision rallying to Mr. Kodak's side almost immediately.
At last. Rules forever, my son. I see only darkness before me.
Motherfucker, dude. They were like, yeah, boys, that was a really good video. MadSeasonShow. I don't know why I'm not subscribed to him. He has the voice, dude. I should. I know why I'm not subscribed to him. I'm like subscribed to like 4 channels. I don't really subscribe to people. That's not a thing that I do. But yeah, I guess he deserves one though.